marvel, I am the leader of the mutants. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction. So don't try any techniques you hear here in real life, your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 26 Blue-Green Bug. Yuri opened his eyes, and was surprised to find that the color of the drop of lizard potion on the glass slide turned blue and green. Wow! With his thinking accelerating, he suddenly came up with a bold idea. If the potion that appeared green to the naked eye was peeled off little by little, leaving only pure blue, could the target potion be obtained directly? With the idea that nothing would go wrong after a try, he used his eyesight and controlled his life energy to roughly extract all the genes that appear green in appearance and can be transcribed and translated into green substances, intuitively looking at the two distinct drops of medicine, one blue and one green, on the slide. He ordered Kate, who was watching fiercely on the side, "Go, bring 2 white mice over, let us see their respective effects." Squeak. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The 2 mice vividly performed what it means to be cowardly as a mouse and run around with its head in its hands. They shrank in fear in the corner farthest from Kate and screamed loudly to show their submission. Yuri took out 2 brand new microsyringes, sucked up the 2 drops of medicine on the slide and put them away. He opened a cage that Kate was carrying, and stretched out his sinful hand to the trembling rat inside. "Come here." He picked up the needle tube filled with green medicine, and inserted it precisely into the carotid artery of the mouse. The fast-flowing blood quickly spread the pharmaceutical factors throughout the body. In less than a second, the size of the white mouse in Yuri's hand expanded rapidly, and he could clearly feel that its struggle became stronger more than 1 magnitude. Juju. Hiss. This time the mouse transformed into a lizard significantly faster. Its slippery body kept bumping left and right in Yuri's hands, and it almost escaped several times. Hiss hiss. The size of the lizard mouse continued to expand, and huge deformed muscles propped up the scales like tumors. Its small eyes began to congest and swell, and the skin all over its body made the tearing sound of overwhelm. Seeing that the situation was not good, Yuri quickly threw it into the experimental cabin made of tempered glass and closed the door. Oh, red and green blood mist covered the inner wall of the experimental cabin. Yuri looked closer and found that there were only a few broken white bones scattered everywhere inside. Tisk. Click the auto clean button, and streams of high-pressure disinfectant water will be ejected from the hidden nozzles in the experimental cabin, quickly cleaning the bloody and cruel scene. He opened the cage in Kate's hand, took out the second mouse inside, and without hesitation injected the blue potion, which represents safe and harmless in the Marvel Universe, into its artery. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Kate poked the white mouse, which seemed to have no change, and asked confusedly, "Is the potion broken?" "There is another possibility." Yuri pinched one of the mouse's hind legs with his thumb and index finger. And surging power burst out in the next moment. Crack, the still twitching residual limb carried some bone marrow and nerves away from the main body. In the panicked flapping movements of the mouse, the wound that should have been empty and bleeding unexpectedly sprouted out like worms at a speed visible to the naked eye. Granulation bones, flesh and blood, tendons, a new and powerful hind leg were generated. Kicking and bouncing with great energy under the control of its owner, Yuri put the white mouse into the experimental cabin and personally took a new white mouse and placed it next to it. Repeating the same trick, he separated the original lizard medicine into blue and green parts. After storing them separately with microsyringes, he opened the cage and directly tore off one of the white mouse's hind legs without injecting any medicine. Squeak. Squeak. Amid the horrified screams of the white mouse, he injected the blue medicine into its body, and a brand new hind leg quickly reappeared, replacing the original accessory in Yuri's hand. Next is the moment to witness the miracle. Calling Kate, whose animalistic nature has not diminished, to the experimental cabin, he ordered her to continue harming the 2 mice in a measured manner. He himself walked up to Dr. Connors, whose body temperature had begun to drop, and used a black ball to collect the corpse, which had no other use. It is impossible to eat humans. All mutants who have transformed into humans are no longer allowed to feed on humans. This corpse could only be discovered by some homeless people living in the underground waterway one night, and then ignore him and follow the sewage flow to the distance. Boss Kate pinched the tails of 2 white mice that were obviously emaciated but could not see any scars on their bodies, and raised them in front of Yuri as if to take credit. "It's time to use caution. If you keep playing with them, they may die. Good job. Yuri took a little white mouse, and a sharp claw suddenly emerged from his round fingertips. He lightly scratched the fur of the little white mouse's back, leaving a scar that continuously oozes blood. The mouse wailed feebly. Perhaps the energy of the potion had been exhausted, or perhaps there were no nutrients in its body that could provide the energy needed to regenerate the severed limbs. The wound on its back healed at an alarmingly slow rate, and in the end, a scar was left. A small scar of 2 to 3 centimeters. Yuri pulled the mouse's hind legs, and there was no sign of them breaking or collapsing. The golden life energy seeps in and feels carefully, but no obvious problems can be detected. He threw the white mouse into the cage, raised his head and asked Kate, "Which one is this? The one who sprays the medicine first and then pulls the leg, or the one who pulls the leg first and then sprays the medicine?" Kate replied without hesitation, "Boss, the one you have in your hand is the one that first pulled the leg and then applied medicine." Yuri nodded with satisfaction. He felt as if he had really discovered and mastered one of the bugs in this world. If he conducts genetic experiments in the future to study new medicines, he only needs to ensure that they appear blue visible to the naked eye under normal conditions. Basically, there won't be much of a problem. Once you are born, you will be familiar with it twice, and you will be able to hit the road in the dark 3 times. Yuri held a lizard potion tubes that were supposed to be put into the canary device and distributed throughout New York with both hands. Only 2% of the potions were left in them. The missing ones may have been consumed by Tony. The golden energy quickly penetrated into the green potion, accurately and efficiently separating it into 2 new pills of % blue and % green. Yuri found a slightly larger needle and took away all the green hazardous garbage. After thinking about it, he took away half of the remaining blue beneficial items with a wave of his hand. He put the 2 needle tubes into the black ball. He put the remaining 2 finger-deep glass tubes into the experimental box, hugged Kate, who could not wait, and walked towards the elevator door. "Boss, can we mate now? Don't tear off my clothes yet. Wait a moment, wait a moment. Let me lock the door, at least." End of this chapter. Chapter 27. Borrowing money. Yuri was woken up by Kate, who was annoying him, and the two had an in-depth discussion again, and they didn't leave the room until 8:30. The camera in the corridor captured Yuri's figure, and the built-in artificial intelligence Jarvis immediately reminded, "Mr. Ambrosius, please move to the restaurant on the 1st floor, where there's breakfast prepared for you and Miss Kate, and Mr. Stark is also waiting to discuss with you." Yuri took Kate's arm and walked to the restaurant on the 1st floor, half intimately and half supporting. The leader's strength is reflected in any aspect, whether it is combat power or IQ, whether it is action ability or sexual intercourse ability. Crush all of the same race. Tony and Yuri walked into the extremely luxuriously decorated restaurant on the 1st floor almost at the same time. The former grabbed the cheeseburger prepared for him. He raised the canary pipe in his hand and asked vaguely while stuffing something into his mouth, "Road, where's Dr. Connors? Where are the machines in the lab? What about the production process of medicine? The effect is very good, but if it cannot be mass-produced, our cooperation last night will be ruined." Yuri let go of Kate, who was pressing her whole body on his arm, and let her go to the slowly rotating food line to get what she liked. He casually took a table knife from the dining table and stood directly in front of the meal line while eating and said, "Don't be anxious, Tony. Creating a company is never something that can be completed in a short time." Tony glanced at Kate from afar, who was carefully picking food across the way. After making sure it was safe, he took a small step closer to Yuri and said, "I have a very professional team. It is not difficult to create a company. The only thing we lack now is someone who can mass-produce it." Potion. Yuri used his masseter muscles to chew up and swallow the steak that almost burst out of his mouth. He picked up a glass of red wine and drank it down. While extending the knife to another piece of steak, the old god said, "I'm going to, before I hand over the mass production formula to you, I want to ask you to borrow some money." Tony swallowed the last bite of the cheeseburger and twirled his fingers with unsatisfied interest. After hearing this, he was quite surprised and asked Yuri, who had a calm face, "Borrow money? Have you had any big expenses recently?" Yuri opened his mouth wide and swallowed the whole steak. His hard teeth easily tore it into pieces. The full amount of food made it impossible for him to open his mouth to speak, but it could not prevent Tony from hearing what he wanted to say. "It's none of your business, Tony. You just need to answer me, borrow or not." Tony was startled by the sudden voice in his head. He jumped far away, covered his ears and looked at Yuri, who was chewing steak seriously in horror, and yelled, "Get out of my head." "Relax, Tony." Yuri directly and locally controlled some of Tony's organs, controlling his endocrine glands to release inhibitory hormones. Human emotions are easily manipulated because most of them are related to the levels of various hormones in the body. Tony's feeling now is very strange. Although he is extremely angry and terrified, his heart is strangely calm and calm. What did you do to me again? Tony looked at Kate, who was silently guarding Yuri with fear, and could neither advance nor retreat for a moment. Yuri had enough time to scrape off the white cream from the corner of Kate's mouth with a table knife, and continue the intracranial transmission. I just managed the emotions you couldn't manage for you. You see, now we can talk calmly. After Tony scolded Yuri calmly, he sighed expressionlessly. After confirming that there was nothing unusual except for some strange senses, he quickly adjusted his condition and adapted to the current situation. It's okay to borrow money, but you have to pledge this thing to me. I will lend you as much as the value of the thing you pledge here is worth. Tony saw that Yuri was eating so deliciously, so he also got another cheeseburger and a glass of red wine. The latter took a long time and finally swallowed the steak in his mouth. He picked up a glass of new wine and drank it in one gulp. He pointed to the secret laboratory under the floor and asked, "The only shares I can give you are the shares of the new company. How much do you think he's worth?" "What?" Tony was shocked. He looked Yuri up and down. There was no hint of joking in his golden eyes. He spread his hands and replied while thinking, "This is not an easy question to answer, Yuri. As your friend, I'll give it a valuation. How about 50 billion? Yuri nodded and took a hard bite on the third piece of steak. The overflowing juices were squeezed out by the suddenly compressed muscle fibers, making a sizzling sound. He looked at Tony and said through gritted teeth as if talking to himself, "It seems you don't want to borrow it anymore." Tony leaned back and denied it. He said angrily, "If this potion can only be produced through magic owned by a certain major shareholder who holds 50.00% of the shares. Believe me, Yuri, 50 billion is really it's just the value of your 50.00% shares. 5,000 billion." Yuri swallowed the meat sauce in his mouth and stuffed the remaining steak into his mouth. He stretched out a hand with the 5 fingers spread widely. "Considering the recent stock price of Stark Industries, if it plummets, I only ask you to borrow 5,000 billion. You don't have to worry about the mass production process. I will naturally take out the money when I get it." Tony looked at Yuri, who was no longer willing to discuss, and fell silent. After finishing his burger and drinking all his wine, he walked alone to the corridor outside the restaurant and dialed Pepper's number. "Hello, get ready Pepper, I need to make a cash transfer of up to 5,000 billion." "What?" The sharp sound stung Tony's eardrums, and he couldn't help but move the phone further away. After Pepper had vented her emotions and calmed down a little, he spoke again. "Get ready in one day, can you do it?" "I do not know." The little Pepper on the other end of the phone pushed the hair that fell from her forehead behind her ears. She reported the recent expenses one by one. "You announced the closure of the weapons manufacturing department, and the stock price fell." I know. Tony interrupted Pepper. "Watch it, Pepper. It won't be long before it picks up again. This is just one of them." Pepper went on to state, "You and your good Uncle Apodry have fought from the ground floor to the top of the Stark Tower, and the entire building needs repairs and maintenance." I know. Tony gave the solution without hesitation. "Seize Abada's bank account so we can use his money." After hearing this wonderful idea, Pepper immediately knew that there must be a lot of corruption money during Abada's term. As long as it can be used, many problems can be solved, but the woman's pride made it impossible for her to give up so easily. After thinking about it, she asked again, "Even so, what about the rare metals you asked me to continue to acquire?" "Okay." Tony leaned against the wall, admiring the luxurious oil painting opposite, while shrugging and surrendering. "Then suspend the acquisition, and take out the 5,000 billion US dollars first no matter what, and we can wait until the stock price rebounds to talk about anything else." Pepper held the phone between her ear and shoulder, and quickly packed up the documents on the desktop with both hands. Suddenly, she paused, quickly picked up the phone and asked in a very serious tone, "What about our share recovery plan? We are still 50.00% away from the expected 15.00%. Without this 5,000 billion, you may not be able to complete the absolute control of the company." Tony's expression froze for an instant. He glanced at Yuri, who were still enjoying their meal in the restaurant, and said in a heavy and sad tone, "Then let's put the matter of acquiring equity aside for now. When things here are over, there will be more funds and more equity than 50.00%. Come invest." End of this chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28. Can this be called car theft? My dear brother Tony, is it all over? Yuri took a full glass of red wine from Kate and let her wipe the corners of her mouth gently after taking a sip. He bowed to Tony and asked him bluntly, "When will the money arrive?" Tony stared at the clean meal line in stunned silence. He stared at Yuri's flat belly for a long time, and finally looked away under Kate's cold gaze. He took an apple and took a bite. While chewing, he replied casually, "It will be paid within a day. Besides, are you eating these?" He pointed at the empty meal line beside him and asked curiously, "Nothing else? I just want to know why your belly doesn't seem to have changed at all." "It's none of your business." Yuri drank the red wine in one gulp, put down the empty wine glass gently, pulled Kate, who was inexplicably cold, and turned around and left as Tony said "fuck" angrily but helplessly. A clear voice sounded in his mind, "Tonight you come to your ancestors' handicraft shop, hand over the money and deliver the goods." "Dear Tony, goodbye. I hope never to see you again," Tony whispered to the retreating figure. He could feel that he was recovering, and the birth and death of intense emotions such as joy, anger, sorrow, and joy returned to his control one by one. Before he could feel very happy about this incident, he heard Jarvis above his head say, "Mr. Ambrosius has driven away the Porsche in your garage. Can you please let me go?" Tony's face turned red and blue from time to time, vividly demonstrating what blowing his beard and staring means. After a while, he said helplessly, "In that case, then, gentlemen," Jarvis interrupted, "the latest situation is that Miss Kate got out of the car and kicked the door open, and Mr. Julian Ambrosius drove away with her. Do you want to call the police, Mr. Stark?" Fuck. 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 Tony grabbed the chair in the restaurant to vent his emotions, but he obviously overestimated his own strength. After lifting it twice and realizing that it was not a weapon he could control at all, Tony overturned the chair to the ground and kicked it hard. Kicked and said, "Jarvis, from now on, I will replace the chairs at home with lightweight ones. They must be ones that I can lift." "Noted." Sir Jarvis behaved as usual, and then returned to the previous topic. "Sir, do you need me to call the police on Mr. Ambrosius's car theft behavior?" Tony wiped his face with one hand and regained his composure in the blink of an eye. He twitched the corner of his mouth and said, "Can Yuri call my car stolen? He clearly robbed it." "Don't call the police." Tony glanced at the camera above his head, waved his hand and said, "Contact the maintenance staff to repair the door, and let's forget about it." Boss Kate sat in the passenger seat, her small hands restlessly roaming Yuri's body. The soft and boneless body twisted and rolled in the small carriage, and actually sat directly on Yuri's lap. She licked Yuri's earlobe in small mouthfuls and said coquettishly, "I'm so full, then just stay here." Yuri grabbed her by the neck and threw her directly into the back seat. He looked at the rearview mirror with a serious expression. "There are only 24 hours in a day, and it takes at least 4 hours for us to mate. Today I have made a rule. No one is allowed to give me sex during the day. Do this." Kate huddled pitifully in the back seat, her big eyes darting around. She poked Yuri with a finger and asked, "What if I can't grab Vanix?" Yuri chuckled. "That's your problem." He drove the car very fast and returned to the door of the handicraft shop. In just 10 minutes, pedestrians on the street watched in surprise as a man and a woman, both of whom were excellent in temperament and appearance, opened the door and walked into the shop. And they actually had the idea of opening the door and entering the shop to take a look. Yuri caught a glimpse of some people approaching the shop, rolled his eyes and drove them away. Boss Vanix, who was exuding a decadent aura, leaned forward feebly, and Yuri glanced at the table full of empty pen refills, rubbed the head of the silly bird that had flung himself into his arms with great satisfaction, and said, "Have you finished the translation?" Vanix stretched out his hand and pinched off a strand of hair that didn't belong to Yuri but was tangled in Yuri's clothes, and glared at the radiant Kate fiercely. "This bitch cat dared to take advantage of my wife to stop stealing from the boss." Kate stared back with confidence, and asked Vanix with her head held high, "The boss is asking you something, silly bird." The murderous aura in Vanix disappeared instantly. She walked down from Yuri with a whoosh, and handed Yuri a thick stack of handwritten letters on the table, with you written all over her face. "Come on, praise me," he said. "Boss, I finished translating. It took me a whole night and 13 pen refills." Although Yuri couldn't read and look at it, it didn't affect his pretense at all. He flipped it over casually with his hands, but his eyes looked serious. "The translation is good." Hey, Vanix jumped up to Yuri with his hands behind his back, raised his head proudly and asked knowingly, "Did I pass the exam?" "It's over." Yuri wanted to rub her head as a reward, but found that his hand was tightly held by Kate. Helpless, he had no choice but to turn sideways and lower his head, and in the midst of Vanix's surprised and incomprehensible eyes and Kate's annoyance at stealing the chicken, he gently kissed the corner of the former's mouth. All right, Yuri pushed both women away and temporarily appointed them as examiners for the 3 shacks. After finishing, while all 5 people were there, he issued a second task to the 5 tribesmen. All the exams must be passed before lunch. After lunch, go to the bookstore next door with Ethan. You need more knowledge and information about the Arctic. Watching Vanix and Kate rush the 3 shacks into the second floor like escorting prisoners, Yuri and Ethan, who was working hard at the front desk, doing nothing, ordered, I have to conduct an important research on the 3rd floor, so you will turn off your cell phone, and if someone comes to see you, if you can drag it with you. If you can't, go to the 2nd floor to find Vanix, and they will help you solve the problem. Good boss. Ethan nodded happily. Thanks to the store's sign that people hate ghosts, he didn't think anyone would come here. Even if he did meet someone like the Strategic Homeland Defense Attack and Logistics Bureau a few days ago, he would. I believe that the 5 inhuman-only strong guys on the 2nd floor will handle the problem well. End of this chapter. Chapter 29. The Power of Space. The 5 guys who were taking exams on the 2nd floor all looked at the ceiling above their heads. The next second, Vanix shook the examination questions in his hands and brought the other 4 people's thoughts back to reality with a ferocious expression. Look. What are you looking at? The exam is now. After all the magic circles were activated, Yuri took out all the machines that Howard had left in the underground laboratory from the black ball. The dust covering them had been eliminated in the black ball. Now they are all sharp-edged and shining with a metallic luster. The main materials of these machines are not ordinary steel or alloys. They have excellent resistance and toughness to energy. Presumably they are some kind of new alloy, specially found or invented by Hydra to extract the energy of the cosmic cube. After all, it is the energy ray that can destroy a tank with one shot, will turn into ashes and disappear without a trace if anyone tries to use it without an instrument capable of carrying its brutal properties under Yuri's control. The energy gathering array absorbs all the energy gathered from the sky and the earth and converts it into electrical energy. At the same time, he also transformed the sockets of each machine into magic runes that can directly connect to the energy gathering array. There is no doubt that if these machines are restored to operation now, the power consumed will definitely not be satisfied by the 220 V household voltage. He does not want to cause a large-scale power system paralysis like when he made Captain America. He used his ability to see through these machines one by one. Although Howard was not as sharp as Tony, he still needed to be wary of whether the other party had planted some means to prevent the machines from leaking out decades ago. Nothing at all. Yuri checked more carefully several times. These machines were clean, and there were no traces of modifications in any part. There were no foreign objects or dangerous items in the gaps. Since you, Howard, are so candid, I'm not welcome. When the machines were started one by one, a low hum and a faint blue light soon spread throughout the 3rd floor. Yuri didn't know how much energy of the cosmic cube was still left in these machines, so he didn't dare to hesitate at all. He immediately covered it with his palm and used his ability to sense the operation mode and specific functions of all the machines. This is sealing, this is compression, this is adjustment. Pieces of metal flew out of the black ball and quickly fused and deformed under Yuri's control, forming transmission tubes covered with runes. The dismantled messy machines were connected in order, and a dazzling bright blue energy the flow enters the transmission tube from the first machine. It can be seen with the naked eye. The tubes made of ordinary metal have a tendency to deform and collapse in an instant, but under the influence of bright golden runes, they still carry the energy of the universe Rubik's Cube. It went into the second machine without any problems at this moment. The buzzing sound of the first machine and the shining blue light in the gaps between its parts disappeared at the same time, while the buzzing sound of the second machine and the shining blue light in the gaps between its parts suddenly became louder. Yuri carefully touched the energy in the machine, and instinctively felt its immeasurable power and characteristics that seemed to contain the universe. The desire from the soul surged out, prompting him to approach and understand the power contained in it. The mystery is that the runes representing divine speed and superpower are spread all over the body unconsciously, and the flowing and circulating lines slowly but surely open up new paths. Ding dong. Ding dong. Ding dong. Ding dong. All the machines fail silent, leaving only a faint glimmer of blue light in the gap of the original drawer opened by Yuri. The runes representing divine speed and superpower are still spreading and growing, and they are interconnected and intertwined, showing a different kind of beauty. Yuri remains motionless, but the space around him is swaying like the water surface caressed by the breeze. Circle after circle of small, continuous ripples. The golden eyes are still shining brightly, but if you look closely, you can find the hollowness hidden in them. His thoughts at the moment followed a bright blue meteor that flew an unknown distance. He was vaguely aware of the displacement of stars, the transformation of space, and the birth and death of the universe. But every time he wanted to understand it carefully, it was as if he was seeing through a layer of frosted glass. It can't be real. Time passed by minute by second, and the sun was setting in the west unknowingly. At a certain moment, the speed runes, which were several times more complex and mysterious than before, finally stopped expanding and extending. At the same time, they were swimming in the vastness. Yuri finally woke up. The huge gap caused by the transformation between reality and reality made him feel a little uncomfortable. After taking a few deep breaths to calm down, he realized the changes in himself without warning. His figure suddenly appeared in the corner of the wall more than 10 meters away. In the next moment, he raised his hand and stretched it forward, but his entire arm appeared strangely in front of the drawer that was emitting a faint blue light. The power of space. Yuri instantly came to the broken arm and completed the rendezvous with it. The reason for performing this magical scene was none other than the attributes of space he realized from the cosmic Rubik's Cube. Although he was confused and couldn't figure out how to do it, he had super speed and super power. However, he actively absorbed and assimilated this higher-level attribute energy, allowing Yuri to use it without knowing why. A strange expression flashed across Yuri's face. What's this? Are you a mature body and have learned to improve yourself? But the improvement in strength is undoubtedly a good thing. Not only is he now faster than before, but he can also teleport short distances within 20 meters of his body. No forward shaking, no process, just a thought, until he reaches the end. Like a child who just got a new toy, Yuri continued to become proficient in the use of space abilities. Thanks to the mutant's strong fighting instincts, he developed front and rear flanking attacks, and a series of abilities that can be used, such as I cracked, the Great Light Speed, etc. Just when he was about to take up the challenge again, he felt extremely tired. Not only was the energy in his body exhausted, but his mind was also tired. Only then did Yuri realize that the current energy storage and energy quality level of his body were simply not enough to support his long-term use of advanced energy such as the power of space. Helpless, he had no choice but to walk into the energy gathering array and calculate his limit based on the previous use while charging, 33 times. Knowing this but not knowing why, whether it is teleportation or something else, all he can do is to use the power of space to anchor a certain position, and then use the power of space to move to the anchored position. In this case, whether it is moving 1 meter or moving 20 meters, the consumption of space power is exactly the same, and his current limit is to perform 33 anchoring and displacements. What kind of control is this? Yuri frowned and opened the drawer. There were 12 square blue cubes about the size of a fingertip lying quietly inside. He waved his hand and stored them properly somewhere in the space inside the black ball, and then put them away. The machines that had lost their energy source and were no different from scrap metal were put away. Energy. Glancing at the clock on the wall, 7:25, he murmured, I don't have much time left. End of this chapter. Chapter 30. Raw Tier Mark 2. Tuk. Ethan, who was troubled by 5 people and couldn't return home, heard a knock on the door and breathed a sigh of relief. He forced a smile and stood up from the Arctic Geography Knowledge Study Group, where the discussion was in full swing, and hurriedly ran to open the door. I really don't know where my boss found this group of powerful people. At first, he could lead the entire group to learn knowledge, but not long after, these 5 guys were able to achieve 10 lines at a glance, photographic memory, and draw inferences from one instance. Their learning progress is beyond his control, so forget it. After all, he who hears the Tao in no particular order and masters it is the teacher. Although he can't keep up with everyone's learning progress, he can still gain a lot of serious knowledge just by sitting here. But as they sat, the style of this group of people suddenly changed. According to the geological structure, I can break 10 meters of ice with one punch. What about you? And according to the analysis results of ocean currents, I can break 10 meters of ice with one punch. Is it faster to swim or take a boat from the United States to the North Pole? And the global airflow will be stable next month. I think flying there will definitely be faster than taking a plane. The key is that this group of people are always discussing the final extreme. Ask him seriously, what do you think, Teacher Ethan? I sit and watch. Is this a topic that I, a mere mortal, can participate in? Ethan walked towards the store door with a smile on his face. He couldn't help but feel that his mother was selling more and more. He had already decided not to accept any teaching tasks that Yuri would arrange for him in the future. Absolutely not. I leaned on the peephole of the closed store door and looked out. There was no one on the quiet street. Ethan frowned. Is he probably a night owl or drug addict just knocking on the door in boredom? Just as he was about to go back to say goodbye to the 5 people and go home from get off work, 2 narrow eyes shining with crystal white light and an angular red gold metal head occupied Ethan's entire field of vision behind the cat's eyes. How they shines! Ethan was so frightened that he stepped back and was about to fall to the ground because he tripped over the table leg, but Chat appeared behind him like a ghost and gently helped him up at the same time. The other 4 people who were discussing just now also came to the door of the store. Among them, Kate twitched her nose slightly, and a look of disdain and contempt suddenly appeared on her face. She waved her hand and said nonchalantly, "Open the door." Yes, here comes the boss money giver. At this time, Ethan finally calmed down. The rudeness just now was just because Tony appeared too suddenly. After calming down, who would be frightened by a person hiding in a metal can? He thanked Chater, who had been supporting his back, and then took out a key from the front desk and opened the door lock. When the 5 people saw this, Sharon returned to the original route and continued to discuss the problem. Seeing how cleanly they left, Ethan hesitated and shouted, "You can come in outside the door." He hurriedly caught up with the 5 people who asked him to leave. An extremely humble monster. Okay, he's still a little timid. Crack. The security door was pushed open violently, and a golden and red figure quickly flashed into the shop like a thief and closed the door. Tony breathed a sigh of relief in the suit, turned around and complained, "Why are you so slow today, Yuri? Are you overworked and have to hold on to the wall to go downstairs?" The discussion that was not very loud on the first floor of the shop was temporarily suspended. The 5 oil mutants stood up and glared at the red and gold armor that was frozen in place. The Vanix in it released a powerful aura. As he approached Tony, he asked dissatisfiedly, "Are you questioning the boss's strength?" "Stupid mortal," Jarvis, the artificial intelligence built into the armor, promptly reminded Mr. Stark. After preliminary scanning, except for Mr. Ethan, the other 5 people present, like Miss Kate, whom you marked as a focus not long ago, are unable to traces of past existence were found on the internet. It is speculated that there is an 80.00% chance that they have abilities comparable to Miss Kate. It is recommended to escape immediately. Why don't you answer? Vanix quickly flashed in front of Tony, with 5 slender fingers protruding toward the armor's headlight claws. Before the armor made an automatic defensive action, he directly buckled and steps onto Tony's visor. The front ends of the 5 fingers instantly turned into sharp claws, easily leaving 5 shallow depressions on the alloy that bullets could not penetrate. It was only then that the armor's arms grasped Vanix's arm. Tony finally came to his senses in the huge crisis. Jarvis kept reporting the degree of damage to the visor. In just a few short seconds, within seconds, the initial surface dent turned into 70.00% damage to the connecting gear. Tony felt that what he was grasping was not an arm, but an iron rod that was stronger than Captain America's shield. Even if the hydraulics and thrusters at his fingers and arms were overloaded, he could not shake it in the slightest. "Ethan, help me." Ethan, who was blocked behind by the 4 shacks, heard this familiar voice and asked softly with disbelief, "Tony." A series of leaky wires were exposed from the connection between the visor and the helmet. Before Tony had time to answer, he heard Vanix let out a soft drink. He suddenly exerted force on his wrist and directly pulled off the entire mask, and then used a straight. The other free hand grabbed the arm of the armor that was still exerting force, and with a twist pulled down the propeller that was constantly spraying flames. Bang! Vanix kicked Tony away. The heavy steel armor came into close contact with the security door, making a huge sound. Mysterious golden patterns emerged, instantly resolving the impact transmitted to the door. etc. Seeing that Vanix wanted to continue, Ethan quickly squeezed out from behind the 4 of them. "Vanix, Tony and Yuri are very good friends, and didn't you hear what Kate said? He is here this time to give money, otherwise, let's wait until Yuri comes down." Vanix glanced at Tony, who was struggling to get up from the ground, and turned to Kate, the civet cat who was watching on the wall with her arms folded, for confirmation. When she saw the other party nodded, she curled her lips and murmured in a rather unsatisfying low voice, "I still have it. I thought we could have a fight." Whereas Yuri, Tony held his kick stomach with one hand and stood up with difficulty while holding on to the wall with the other hand. He walked to the front desk and leaned against it. His eyes were evasive as he passed by the 5 people who had returned to the original route to start the discussion. He quickly walked over. On Ethan, he took a deep breath, and the muscles affected the nerves and caused pain, which made his rather handsome face twitch unnaturally. I want to discuss with him the compensation for injuries caused by employees. I don't think it's necessary. A beam of golden life energy flew out from the stairwell, and hit Tony accurately, who was holding his stomach and looking in pain. The 5 people who had just discussed for a few words stood up again before their stools got warm. They looked towards the handsome man who walked slowly downstairs. Had a much stronger aura than before. A trace of fanaticism flashed across the face of Vanix, who had just torn off his mask. He lowered his head and joined the 5 people around him. He said in a respectful tone, "Boss." Yuri nodded to them, holding a metal ball the size of a ping-pong ball in his hand and kept throwing it up and down. He smiled at Tony, "Because you weren't injured at all." End of this chapter. Chapter 31. That's not all. The boss took out a metal ball the size of a table tennis ball and was able to get $5,000 billion from Tony. Moreover, the 2 of them had developed a drug that can regenerate amputated limbs and planned to set up a company and sold it to the public. What excited him most was that Yuri actually wanted to replace him on the board of directors of this company that had not yet been established. There is no better way to reach the pinnacle of life than this. Ethan touched the smooth shining air, with a hint of loss in his eyes. No matter how good his career, no matter how much power and money he had, he could not return to that war-torn town, nor could he save his life from being taken away by the war. My wife and daughter. Whoosh crack. Ethan, who was caught up in reminiscing, was startled by the javelin that was suddenly stuck in the front wheel of his bicycle. Fortunately, he was riding very slowly, and even if he fell off the seat, his skin would only be sore before he could crawl off the ground. When I got up, I felt a chill on the back of my head. Then a hand wrapped in a dark red battlesuit stretched out from behind and pulled out the javelin stuck in the wheels of the cart. In Ethan's exclamation that he couldn't shout out, the mysterious man took him up into the air and landed on the rooftop of a building that looked deserted and dilapidated in a few flashes. Ethan took a closer look at the street and saw there are drug addicts and homeless people lying everywhere. Ethan, who is familiar with the surrounding environment, is worried. Isn't this Hell's Kitchen? Ethan, an employee of Ancestor Handicraft Store. Don't yell and draw attention to yourself. I just want to ask you a few questions. A dull, hoarse voice sounded from behind. When the mysterious man saw Ethan, whose mouth was covered, show an okay gesture, he let him go and asked, "What does the waiter in Hell's Kitchen send you every day?" Ethan turned around and took a few steps back. He looked up and down at the mysterious man who had captured him. His eyes stayed on the short stick he was holding for a moment. He answered truthfully, 3 meals a day, sir. Once I tried to persuade the boss not to order from Hell's Kitchen, but he didn't take it seriously." The mysterious man turned the stick in his hand in a circle, and his inhuman hearing allowed him to clearly detect the beating frequency of Ethan's heart. He was not lying. Just when he was about to ask again, he heard Ethan's slightly skeptical and excited voice, "Crimson coat, retractable short stick, are you the legendary Night Stalker of Hell's Kitchen?" The flexible rotating short stick stopped for a moment, and Daredevil Matthew, whose identity was revealed, avoided the question without saying a word. He just had some doubts about his ancestor's handicraft shop. Now it seems that even if it has some connection with the underground evil forces in New York, what kind of collusion is not something that the ordinary clerk in front of me can know. After thinking for a while, he continued to ask, "So Ethan, where's your boss, bad boss? Didn't you just break that Tony's mask? He obviously promised not to deal with me, so why won't he let me mate with him tonight?" Vanix huddled in bed, complaining resentfully about what a certain man had done. The other 3 people, who were immersed in their respective fields of interest and studying, acted as if they hadn't heard anything. Only Chat couldn't bear her thoughts and said, "If I don't deal with you, it doesn't mean I won't punish you. The boss is not downstairs. Where are you going to deal with Kate? I tell you, this is your punishment." Vanix's mouth immediately pursed into a crescent moon. She turned over and stopped complaining. She just said bitterly, "Damn Tony Stark, took took took, took took took." The 4 people on the second floor looked at each other. According to human schedules, there should be no one at this point. What is going on today? Why is there someone knocking on the door again? That Tony Stark must be here again. I'm going to open the door. Vanix got dressed under the covers and jumped out of bed with a bang. She planned to make a suggestion to her boss tomorrow, even if she couldn't mate, then her bed would have to be moved to the 3rd floor. It didn't matter that she had never been a human being before, but now she lived in the same room with 3 big men every day. No matter how she thought about it, she felt uneasy. The remaining 3 people looked at each other, and the leader Shaq sighed. He didn't even take off his clothes and said helplessly, "Let's go, the boss is busy, we have to watch the stupid bird." Seeing the windows on the 2nd floor light up, Matthew dragged Ethan away from the store with a solemn expression. There must be something dirty in the store that no one knows about, and the boss also knew something about his abilities and made some mistakes. According to the corresponding countermeasures, with his ability to monitor the hearing of 3 streets, he could not hear a single sound in the store. Click, the store door burst open, and a humanoid creature with blood flowing like a tsunami all over its body and a heartbeat as strong as a drum suddenly appeared in Matthew's hearing world. A sense of mortal threat swept through his brain. Just when he was about to make a strategic retreat, I heard a sweet and slightly surprised female voice. "Not Tony Stark? Ethan? Is this your friend, silly bird?" Seeing the short stick stuck on Ethan's neck, Charter said in a tone of hatred, "My friend, Vanix, look carefully, this is obviously kidnapping." Kidnapping? Vanix was slightly excited. "Does that mean this is the enemy? etc. etc." Seeing her expression, Ethan immediately guessed what she wanted to do. Although Daredevil is indeed suspected of kidnapping him, Ethan knows what his starting point is. The latter is no better than Tony's Mark armor. If Vanix touches it, it won't take more than a minute. I will hate the Northwest for a lifetime. So the hostage who was held hostage took the initiative to excuse the kidnapper behind him. Daredevil is not an enemy, and he is not a bad person, Shaq. He just has some trivial misunderstandings about us. Whether it's an enemy or not will be discussed later. The most important thing now is to save you from the hands of this pervert in a tights. In Matthew's hearing world, the blood flow in the speaker's legs suddenly accelerated, and then the short hard alloy stick stuck in Ethan's throat made a chilling sound of breaking, and a gust of wind rushed towards his face. It felt like I was hit head-on by a speeding truck, and my whole body flew out as gently as a rag. Chat, capture him and bring him back. I'll notify the boss. Matthew, who was still in the air, sprayed a mouthful of blood on his mask, and the fishy sweet smell instantly filled his brain. Before he landed, he was picked up by Chat. Seeing his miserable state, the latter said disdainfully, "Weak human being," gently crushed his fists that he fought desperately, and threw him into the small shop that was opened by Vanix. While Matthew screamed in extreme pain, a hand suddenly pulled off his mask, revealing a face covered in blood. The sweet voice sounded again, "Oh, it turns out he is a blind man." End of this chapter. Chapter 32. We are all partners of justice. Yuri stared at the stupid Daredevil Matthew, who was kneeling in front of him by 5 people with an unkind look on his face. If being woken up while sleeping in bed would make people have the urge to kill someone, then 2 people in interrupting a conversation while the bed isn't sleeping can leave 2 people wanting to chop it up into mincemeat. He took a deep breath, his golden eyes looked up and down at the Daredevil in front of him who had not hummed until now, and said, "Kidnap my employees, disturb my nightlife, and give me a reason not to kill you." The blood on Matthew's face had already condensed into scabs. Hearing this, he raised his head and tossed aside his hair that was wet with sweat beads on his forehead. His cloudy eyes stared at the man in front of him who posed the greatest threat to him. "Damn Kingpin's lackey. Even if you kill me, you can't cover up your dirty soul." Yuri frowned slightly. "Kingpin's lackey? Me?" Boss Ethan weakly interjected. "Daredevil and us should have some misunderstandings, because Hell's Kitchen often delivers food to us, which leads him to think that we and each other are engaged in some illegal activities. He is actually a good person who specializes in fighting illegal crimes. That's what they say on the internet." When Vanix saw Yuri bowing his head in thought, he quietly walked next to Ethan and asked softly, "What does lackey mean?" "I don't think the boss likes this word very much." Ethan looked embarrassed. It was impossible to deceive Vanix, because she would definitely find time to search secretly by herself, but it didn't seem possible to tell the truth. Tony just mocked Yuri a little and was deducted. He kicked the visor away to let the irritable little girl know the true meaning of a lackey. He was worried that Daredevil would be beaten into pieces by the furious 5 people. "You know," Ethan racked his brains for words, "dogs are man's best friend. Daredevil may mean that the boss and Kingpin have a very deep relationship. You are lying to me." Vanix could tell at a glance that he was lying. Stooge was definitely not a nice word to use. Her eyes scratched at Daredevil several times, secretly thinking about when she could teach this weak human being who insulted her boss a profound lesson. Yuri moved a chair and sat down on his own. He looked at Daredevil kneeling on the ground, flipped his wrist and gave him a golden healing light ball. Before the other party had any questions, he activated his psychic ability. Send him to sleep instantly. Kingpin's real name is Wilson Grant Fisk. He's the largest underworld leader in New York and even the United States. He's thoughtful and intelligent. More than 90.00% of his body is made of muscle. He has amazing strength and can penetrate with his bare hands a wall, and he is also a world-class fighting master, possessing the highest level of human combat effectiveness. In addition, his cane can also emit lasers and smoke, making it difficult for opponents to guard against him. He is known as Kingpin in the underworld, which means mastermind. His underworld network spreads all over the world and controls 70.00% of the underground in the United States. Business, and the notorious Hell's Kitchen is a breeding ground for criminals created by it in order to maintain the apparent peace and stability of social order. I have an idea. Yuri opened his mouth to attract everyone's attention to himself. The Kingpin he talks about is the master of the underground world, with eyes and hands reaching the sky. He is not just a gang boss. But to us, he and others, they are generally the same, and they are all insignificant members of the more than 70 billion people on Earth. The king of the underworld, if he can do it, we can do it too. The people at the helm of the country under our feet don't want complete peace. They want order and rules. And they don't care at all who the individuals or groups are who make the rules and order. As long as we can feed their greedy pocket, we can secure our seat as rule makers. So everyone, does anyone want to try it? He was not worried at all that after killing Kingpin, some of his loyal subordinates would recruit as old men to become his enemies. If it were not for the purpose of training the social skills of the Five Shacks so that they could integrate into human society more quickly, the title of Underworld Emperor would be to him. It is simply insignificant. Under the control of his mind, few pure-blooded humans in the world can disobey his orders. As the leader of the mutant tribe, I really worry about the children. Vanix, who is the most positive in everything, was the first to speak. She asked excitedly, "Boss, if you become the Underworld Emperor, you can do whatever you want, kill whoever you want, and make whatever money you want. Can you spend it yourself?" Yuri nodded. "You can kill people, but only for enemies who are against you and bad guys who do evil." "Is that so?" The silly bird grinned. "Then can I kill Tony Stark?" Yuri had a dark look on his face. "What kind of hatred or grudges are there? Are you thinking about killing your own son in the Marvel world before you even enter the underground world?" "Cannot." Silly bird snorted twice when he heard this, and said directly, "Then I won't do it." Yuri sighed with hatred, and after telepathy, he realized that this idiot was all blaming Tony for not being able to sleep with him tonight. "Vanix, listen to me. You can teach Tony a lesson, but you must not kill him. Even if the attack is serious, you have to leave him breathing enough for me to rush over and revive him. Tony's Tucker is related to the future survival of the tribe. You must not kill him. This is an order, remember." Seeing Yuri's serious and abnormal expression, Shania had no choice but to reply weakly, "Remember, boss, I want to try." Kate, whose face was still flushed, said softly, "I don't like to be in the public eye. The Underworld Emperor hiding underground may be a very good identity." Yuri nodded. Kate was still reliable. He said happily, "Then it's settled. I will modify Daredevil's memory and shape the five of you into righteous people who hate evil and hate evil. Starting from tomorrow night, everyone will follow him and become familiar with the underworld world. Let's learn the basic common sense of human society based on the laws of operation. If you want to learn to fight, you must first learn to be beaten. If you want to control the underworld, you should also start by fighting against the underworld." Kate and Vanix go to the third floor, and the rest go back to their homes and disband. Ethan looked blankly at the five people who just went upstairs. The task of replacing the Underworld Emperor, who was so powerful, was decided so hastily by these guys on such an ordinary night. He had no doubt at all whether the five Kates had the strength to complete this task. But his mind had not turned around yet, and he wondered what kind of powerful organization he had joined here. Yuri had finished modifying Matthew's memory and was about to slap him to wake him up from his sleep, but out of the corner of his eye he caught sight of Ethan, who was still in the store. He walked over very kindly and patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't be afraid, Ethan. This is also for your safety. In the future, Kate will become the queen of the underworld, and no blind little person will dare to kidnap you anymore. Don't worry and go home. You have to go to work tomorrow." Ethan squeezed out an ugly smile. "Then I really think you snapped." After all, the slap fell on Matthew's face. Yuri wiped the blood scab on his hand and said with a smile to Daredevil, who woke up, "Matthew, we can't be acquainted without fighting. Shaq and the others will join your operation tomorrow night. Please escort Ethan home safely tonight. No problem, Yuri. Matthew took the hood handed over by Yuri and put it on his head without hesitation. Under Ethan's gaze, as if he had seen a ghost, a dull and hoarse voice sounded, "We are all partners of justice." End of this chapter. Chapter 33 Mind Control. Yuri and Silly Cat and Silly Bird kept fighting until Ethan arrived at the store for work. After breakfast, he moved the 2 beds belonging to Kate and Vanix on the 2nd floor to the 3rd floor, finally completely solving Vanix's situation of deep resentment. Today your task is to understand and learn the various exploration tools that can be searched online. When I come back, you will see 5 reasonable and feasible Arctic exploration and search plans. After Yuri gave the order, he took the car keys and went out. He is going to Wall Street to invest all the $5,000 billion borrowed from Tony to appreciate it. He gave his plan a very vivid code name called borrowing chickens and laying eggs. Yes, he plans to use all $5,000 billion to purchase shares of Stark Industries. If I remember correctly, the biggest stock price change this year is here. The stock price of Stark Industries after Tony announced the closure of the weapons manufacturing department. After plummeting, arms companies that no longer produce weapons are nothing in the eyes of mortals. Fortunately, Obadiah turned the tide and barely stabilized the stock price through press conferences one after another. However, he was so desperate that when his plan was about to succeed, as a criminal, he was killed by his nephew Tony on the rooftop of his company. No one thought that a playboy, even a notorious genius inventor, could save the building from collapse after Tony's intentional operation, and with the strong assistance of artificial intelligence Jarvis, Stark Industries' stock price has experienced more than a dozen times of falling to the limit without ever improving even a cent. Under this trend, many media outlets have speculated that Stark Industries is about to face delisting. Of course, Yuri knew what Tony's purpose was. He just wanted to take back the scattered shares and strengthen his decision-making power over the company. As we all know, Tony and Yuri are good brothers who share life and death. This was even reflected when SHIELD came to visit, so Tony's is Yuri's, and the 5,000 billion stocks that were originally going to be acquired by Tony were in Yuri's hands. It's the same. Anyway, he has always been a loyal supporter of the former in terms of company operations. Tony, you must be very happy that I believe you so much. Good morning, sir. How may I help you? The lady at the front desk had a sweet smile on her face. She could tell at a glance that the young man looking around was not only handsome, but also must have strong financial resources and a rich family background. Do you have an appointment? Yuri hummed non-committally. In such a high-priced area of Wall Street, this financial company can actually own an entire building. Its business capabilities must not be much different. His golden eyes were slightly wide, and he easily influenced this ordinary human being. Is the boss here? If so, tell me his location. The boss is here. The front desk didn't notice anything was wrong, and generously told Yuri all the information he wanted to know. The top floor is his office. You can take the exclusive elevator to save time. After he finished, he smiled and handed Yuri a gilt black card. Use this to open it. Yuri smiled gently, took the card and said, "Thank you, beautiful lady." Then he looked at the other receptionist who was about to stop the 2 people from moving. The latter immediately put down his hand that was stretched out in the air, and the confusion on his face turned into a sweet smile from the heart. It is our honor to serve you. A dedicated elevator is a must. The public elevator only 1 step away is lined with company employees in suits and ties, but the elevator in front of them always moves back and forth between several floors, with no intention of going down to the 1st floor. In the short period of time Yuri walked from the front desk to the elevator, he had already seen several white-collar workers who had to take the stairs because they could not wait for the elevator. Under the eyes of everyone who were either envious or jealous, he easily opened the exclusive elevator door that had been parked in the lobby on the 1st floor with his black gold elevator card, walked into the elevator car calmly with 2 long legs, and finally returned. He did not forget to wave goodbye to the 2 blonde beauties who had been watching him at the front desk. Ding dong. The elevator stopped slowly on the 17th floor, and the 2 tightly fitting steel doors slowly opened, revealing the splendid corridor outside and the burly bodyguards in black suits. One of them looked Yuri up and down, then stretched out his hand to stop him. "Sir, the company's board of directors is convening. Please move to the reception room." Yuri glanced at the opponent's bulging waist, not noticing even the slightest threat. His eyes turned completely wide, and his powerful spiritual power instantly controlled everyone present. "Take me to where the directors are meeting." The bodyguard in black immediately retracted the hand that was originally holding Yuri back and took the lead towards the end of the corridor. His tone was full of obedience and respect. "Please come this way." Yuri Sharon followed him to a carved door and watched as the other party pressed his finger on a certain position to unlock it. Click. The heavy conference room door slowly opened, and the noise of the board of directors slipped out through the crack in the door. Yuri strode into the conference room amidst everyone's surprised eyes. Before the door was closed, he heard a fat, middle-aged, greasy man sitting almost at the end ask, "Where did this guy come from? Did any of you invite me?" Click. The door was closed and locked again. Yuri looked around at the group of financial tycoons with different expressions on the huge round table, and said straight to the point, "Before this, I didn't know any of you, but from now on, you have been selected as I completed the execution of a project. With all due respect, sir." A man who was very high up but still some distance away from the chairman took a deep puff of the cigar on his fingertips. Under Yuri's gaze, he slowly exhaled a puff of light blue smoke and said with an arrogant and disdainful expression, "Although I don't know what method you used to get our bodyguards to open the door to the board of directors for you, but why do you think that everyone here will obey your orders like the group of idiots outside the door and help you complete your mission? Where's that damn project?" By this Yuri pointed at his eyes that turned white instantly, easily taking over the souls and consciousness of the 26 shareholders present in this financial company. The white-haired old man sitting at the top, who had been silent, silently gave up his seat to Yuri. "Take out a new wine glass and carefully fill it with half a glass of crystal clear wine." Yuri snapped his fingers, and his pure white eyes looked around all the shareholders again. "From now on, you will buy Stark Industries shares for me with all your strength, use all the public resources that the company can use, and use every conceivable method or a trick to convert all the checks worth $5,000 billion in my hand into Stark Industries stocks in the shortest possible time. If you want to get the most shares, I'm afraid it will take some time, sir." The man with the eyes on the right was operating on the computer, raised his head and said, "1 week, we need 1 week." Yuri drank all the wine in the glass in one gulp. The body of the glass made a pleasant sound when it collided with a long solid wood table. He stood up and walked towards the door of the conference room. 1 week is a completely acceptable time, and besides, he pointed at the two shareholders who had spoken just now and smiled, "if there is some gap in funds, let them contribute some selflessly. I believe they are very generous people, right?" End of this chapter. Chapter 34. Ginger. Driving aimlessly around the streets, although what he saw had already appeared in his memory, after seeing it with his own eyes, he still couldn't help but marvel at the speed of human evolution, from monkeys with thick hair and blood to well-dressed people. Civilized people, they actually only spent tens of thousands of years, and the souls under their weak bodies grew even faster. No wonder the death of half of the population caused the awakening of the gods. In the center of the earth as he was walking, he was suddenly attracted by a poster posted on the outer wall of a movie theater. "Ginger, the star of Shadow Warriors, Time Journey, will arrive in New York on the 24th of this month." Yuri took out his phone and took a look at it. His golden eyes were filled with anticipation. "What a coincidence, Ginger. I originally planned to go to Bollywood to find you, Ginger." One of the Eternals descended on the earth. He can launch powerful energy bombs from his fingers. After a short period of power accumulation, he can rub his hands together to create a super large energy ball that is as powerful as a cannonball. He has a faster attack frequency and large attack range, often hiding behind the steel fortress of fastest for stand-up output, causing a lot of damage to the former mutants. After all the mutants were sealed or killed, the 10-man team of the Eternals announced their disbandment. Ginger left the world and became obsessed with acting and making movies. Due to the immortality of the Eternals, he had to build the entire family tree alone. Until now, this generation should already be the great-great-grandson of the original self. Yuri quickly browsed through the memories in his mind, wishing he could move back to the small shop immediately, and immediately searched the internet for his specific whereabouts. At least % of the blood debt of the mutant tribe will fall on this guy, and now he has gone to his own territory. Kill it no matter what. Taking a deep breath to calm down the restlessness in his heart, he turned the steering wheel sharply, stepped on the accelerator and drove towards the store. When he opened the store door, the first thing Yuri saw was 5 humanoid mutants standing in a row, each with a pile of paper covered with writing. Vanix, who was at the top of the queue, stretched out the 3 pieces of paper with a proud face, and complained in an inexplicable tone, "Boss, why are you coming back so slowly? We have lunch. I made the plan a while ago, and I have been waiting for you to come back for approval all afternoon." Yuri ignored her, and walked past the 5 people and took their searching for compatriots' proposals one by one. He nodded to Ethan, who was only exposed behind the counter and hidden behind the books, and walked upstairs quickly. Said, "You five, come with me, there is something very important that I need to tell you." The five shacks looked at each other in confusion. Although they were full of doubts, they all followed without saying a word. Ethan behind the counter put down his book and touched his shiny forehead. He deliberately borrowed a few books on company management and manpower deployment from the next door today, but seeing that he had only read dozens of pages, he was very envious of 5 books. Ringui's learning ability was so envious that he even had low self-esteem. He pushed up his eyes that had fallen to the tip of his nose, and he shook his head and sighed sincerely. "I'm old." The third floor of the shop. Yuri quickly turned on the computer, opened the search engine under the watchful eyes of the 5 shacks, and entered keywords such as Bollywood, Shadow Warriors, Ginger, Schedule, etc. There was a picture of a huge motorcycle on it. The poster came into view. Yuri clicked on the picture to enlarge it. As the 5 people behind him began to breathe heavier, he rotated the seat 180 degrees so that he was facing the 5 people looking at their hatred-filled eyes. He nodded with satisfaction and said, "After wiping us all out, the Eternals integrated into human society and hid themselves. I have killed their leader Ajik and their leader of wisdom, Fasto. See, the mind controller druid, the speedster Makari, and the person you see is the sharpshooter hidden in human society Ginge. In the past endless years, he has caused immeasurable harm to our tribe. Tens of thousands of our compatriots have died at the hands of this despicable villain who only knows how to hide in a turtle shell and carry out sneak attacks. Now, although our number is very few, but with my help, you have all improved 1,000 times compared to before you were sealed. Whether it is recovery power, soul strength, speed or the powerful weapons I have now, you are enough to face one-on-one the remaining 6 Eternals of Hard Steel." Boss Shaq, the calmest one, spoke first this time. His voice was slightly trembling with excitement, and all the muscles in his body were twitching uncontrollably. "Where is he? I can't wait to kill him right away." "Got it." When Yuri heard this, he gave him a hard blow. He grabbed Shaq, who was as strong as a bear, by his ears, and dragged the fool, whose emotions had taken over his mind, to the computer screen. "Where is it? What? Do you want me to tell you everything? You can't see the big words on the computer screen, right?" Shaq finished reading the content on the screen with grinning teeth. "It is reported that Ginger will arrive in New York on the evening of the 24th. After staying at the Serena Hotel for one night, the next day will start it, in the morning. Promotional event for the new game Shadow Warriors, Journey Through Time." I saw it. Although Shaq was in pain, he did not dare to break away from Yuri's right hand holding his ear no matter what. He could only plead for mercy. "Boss, I was wrong. I really see it now, humph." Thanks to the mutant's powerful physique, Yuri grabbed Shaq's ear and yanked it back. The huge force did not tear off this dispensable part, but instead used it to drive the entire main body and hit it hard on the back on wall panels. The remaining 4 Vanics ignored Shaq's embarrassed appearance at all, and all stared at Yuri with piercing eyes, waiting for him to give his next order. "Today is the 24th. Yuri glanced at Shaq, who was standing in a row with his head shrinking. The latter immediately put down his right hand that was rubbing his ear and looked like he was listening attentively. "As the saying goes, you can't eat hot tofu in a hurry. We definitely can't take revenge on Ginge before he enters the hotel. Although we will definitely succeed in achieving our goal, the impact will be too great and is not in line with our principle of keeping a low profile. So my plan, yes, postpone tonight's plan for the 5 of you to learn from Daredevil to fight crime. After 12 o'clock. We will sneak into the hotel and kill Ginger with lightning speed." Seeing that no one had any objections, he ordered Chad, who had the best overall performance, go to Hell's Kitchen to find the Mercado law firm and tell Matthew to be a partner in justice with him tomorrow night. After thinking that there were no omissions, he asked the remaining 4 people to adjust their status, while he began to prepare weapons and equipment for tonight's revenge operation. End of this chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35. Feel Only. Yuri knows very well what the Eternal single combat effectiveness is except for One Punch Man's Gilgamesh, the weakened Marvel Superman Igris, and the Valkyrie Tina with full melee abilities. The remaining 7 guys can't even defeat a mutant race alone. None. The reason why the Eternals were able to complete the cleansing and sealing of the mutants did not rely on their powerful single combat capabilities, but on the triangular spacecraft Tama they boarded when they landed on Earth. Yuri has never entered the Tama so far because he knows that there is a statue of Alisum, the supreme observer of the universe, enshrined inside. Although he doesn't know how much connection it has with the real owner, he would rather believe it or not, in case it attracts without his gaze. Not only himself and the frozen mutant races, but also the Earth are in danger of being completely destroyed when he killed Ajak and absorbed his abilities. Yuri also kept a respectful distance from the celestial sphere in his body that was used to communicate with Alithum. He was worried that a small mistake on his part would bring disaster to the tribe. Time always passes quickly. After watching Ethan come home from get off work carrying a book, Yuri immediately closed the store door and returned to the third floor with a wave of his hand. A pile of equipment with patterns on the surface appeared on the simple workbench. He picked up a wrist guard and tapped it lightly on his wrist. After the golden lines flowed, it fit perfectly on you at the wrist. I twisted my fist a few times without feeling any stumbling. With a slight shake, a huge light shield that could completely cover Shaq appeared out of thin air. Vanix curiously poked it with his finger, and small ripples appeared in the touch area. Yuri glared her back and introduced to everyone, "After my 3 transformations, you should be able to clearly feel a special energy appearing in your body. It can heal your injuries, speed up your speed, and strengthen you. The soul can also act on these equipments and activate their special functions. This is the wrist guard. I have engraved shield magic on it. After activation, it can summon a huge energy shield like this. We all know that Jinja's energy bomb is very powerful. It can resist attacks for you. This is the knee pad. Unfortunately time is limited. I originally wanted to make you some leggings. After activation, it can speed up your movement for a short period of time, and you can dodge in time when there is no time to hold up the shield. These are force-depleting shoes, and I know your power. They are all extremely powerful. In your eyes, human building materials are no different from paper. But in order to keep a low profile, we must not leave too many traces on the scene. It can offset the power acting on the Earth. Activate it once before taking action. The force effect lasts for 10 minutes. This is the arm guard. By the time everyone got used to the equipment, it was already 11:30. Mainly because these two fools, Vanix and Kate, kept asking questions, and even the 3 Shacks, who were not very nervous at first, started to fight. Unable to react in advance, Yuri had to spend time mobilizing them before the war to boost their morale again. Hey, it's just a small ring. When you finish this fight, you will know how vulnerable the nightmare of the past is to you. Now the action begins. After a uniform yes, the 6 mutants, including Yuri, nodded slightly. The Ford protectors stuck in front of their eyebrows covered their entire heads for a few breaths, and then everyone stepped forward. After a while of golden light, there was no more sound. When walking around with a wave of Yuri's hand, the ceiling on the 3rd floor suddenly opened, and the 6 people flexed their legs and jumped to the roof of the Old Man Rogers bookstore next door. After a few ups and downs, the 6 figures disappeared in the thick night. Unable to sleep, the old man lying on the bed watching the dark clouds caught sight of a figure passing by the window, curled his lips for no reason, turned over and murmured, "How do you say that? The moon is dark and the wind is high. Murder and arson, God." The presidential suite on the highest floor of Salina Hotel. Ginger sent away his assistant Karen, who had arranged tomorrow's publicity schedule. He turned off the lights and stood alone in front of the huge glass window. In a daze. He had lived for too long, excluding the days when he fought side by side with his partners in 7,000 years. He spent 2,000 to 3,000 years wandering alone. Sometimes immortality is not a gift, but it can also become a cruel curse. He made many human friends, but without exception, they all grew old under his watch. The same was true for Karen. The young and handsome boy back then has now become a fat man with dark circles under his eyes that cannot be removed. Years, maybe after more than 10 years, he will leave me, please sigh. Ginge rubbed his face fiercely. He didn't know what happened today. He always felt uneasy. Could it be that he had been separated from his comrades for too long and missed him? He did not notice that in the originally empty living room of the suite, 6 uninvited guests appeared out of thin air, wearing scattered armor and their entire heads covered by helmets. Yuri inhaled gently to relieve the consumption caused by excessive use of space power. It was still a bit reluctant to deliver 6 people at once, but fortunately it was successful, and this high-level energy fluctuation did not attract the attention of the target person waving their hands. The 6 people dispersed evenly and slowly approached Ginge, who was covering his face and exuding a decadent aura. During the thousands of years of hunting, every mutant who could survive to this day was doing well. He had learned to restrain and even hide his murderous intentions towards his prey, which led to the fact that it wasn't until the 6 of them got within 10 steps of Jinjack that the other party noticed anything was wrong. He put down his hand, and the sharp eyesight of the sharpshooter has not weakened due to not participating in the battle for a long time. He saw the 6 guys slowly approaching behind him from the reflection of the glass almost instantly. Before he had time to think, a bright golden spots of light converged on his fingertips, and at the same moment, the 5 of Shaq, who knew that they had been exposed, activated all the equipment in their bodies in no particular order, and rushed forward in an instant. The acceleration of knee pads, the increase of arm pads, the puncture of fist gloves, the attenuation of combat boots, the energy ball on Jinja's fingertips had just condensed to the size of a peanut, but 5 fists packed with surging power had already approached him within a punch. Yuri, who had not made any movement after waving his hands, was shaking slightly at this moment. He activated the energy shield on his wrist and stood it in front of him, blocking the hot blood that splattered everywhere. In the next second the 5 Shaqs hit the target and froze in place. They raised their heads, and what they saw was Ginge with a painful face and the golden energy ball in his hand that was gradually extinguishing. Yuri put away the energy shield, and Sharon walked to each of his unbelievable compatriots. Dozens of blue-black transmission tubes were drawn out from his back, and penetrated deeply into the people who opened their mouths and wanted to say something. Inside Jinji's body we are mutants. Yuri leaned close to his ear, and a dangerous smile appeared on his handsome face under the helmet. Don't feel lonely, because you are the 5th. End of this chapter. Chapter 36 The Birth of the Green Goblin. What's scary is the person who can clean up the murder scene after the murder. After confirming that it was impossible to find even a single body hair at the scene, Yuri teleported to his assistant Karen's room based on Ginger's memory. His spiritual power surged out, and he carefully fabricated a sad farewell and instructions for him. Don't tell anyone. False memory. Returning to Ginger's presidential suite again, he just pretended not to see the eyes of the 5 Shaqs full of desire to confide. After putting Ginger's body into the black ball, the 6 of them held hands, and a faint blue light flashed. Afterwards, deathly silence returned to the presidential suite. Yuri led the way, and the 6 of them walked around in a long circle in New York City at 1 o'clock in the morning before returning to the commercial street where the shop was located. They jumped into the top ceiling that had been opened in advance and did not wait for it to close completely. The 5 people scrambled to restore the helmet to the forward protection mode. He died like that. Vanix expressed disbelief. He didn't even fire out the energy bomb. Kate wondered if she was playing too fast. Just one punch from each of us. Tiger lamented the shooter's crispy skin. Are we already this powerful? Chad fell into deep self-doubt. Aren't the Eternals not that good either? Shaq makes sure he's still grounded. Yuri took off his equipment one by one and threw them on the workbench. After he was done, he sat down cross-legged and returned from the human form to the muscular mutant true body. Shut up, everyone. I will personalize it first. The mutant race has an evolutionary ability that even the gods cannot control. As a biological group of flesh and blood, they usually complete evolution in a long iteration, but as the leader of the mutant race, Yuri is the best among the best. During the long battle, he actively evolved the transmission tube behind his back, which can absorb the enemy's abilities and assimilate them into his own body, thereby making himself a more perfect and powerful existence. God knows how uncomfortable Yuri felt on the way back. The superpower from Jinja was like a ball of fire, constantly burning Yuri, who restrained himself. The mysterious lines were like savage mad bulls running rampant, but in the end, it was defeated by Yuri, who had mastered his own control. Now, he finally doesn't have to endure it anymore. The golden lines seemed to have a life of their own. They roamed Yuri's skin, flesh, bones, and meridians. Under the coordination of the most powerful life energy in his body, they quickly transformed Yuri's body into his own territory. The 5 Shaqs looked anxiously at Yuri, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, his body slowly shrinking. The tough filamentous muscles became tighter and stronger in a few breaths, and the terrifying 4 eyes slowly shrank. The 2 came close and merged, and after a surge of flesh and blood, a bright golden light with vertical eyes without a trace of white came out from Yuri's eyebrows. After that, the evolution of the body surface came to an end, but inside the body the transformation continues. Countless golden lines gathered on Yuri's hands, arms, and between his eyebrows. They penetrated into the flesh and bones and firmly imprinted themselves on them. Even the wandering soul was covered with the golden light. Inexplicably, Yuri felt that it was gradually becoming stronger 2 minutes later. Yuri, who had completed his evolution, stood in front of the dressing mirror on the third floor and admired his new mutant body, streamlined muscle lines, slender and powerful limbs, projected on the ground by the light. The shadow on his body is no different from a normal human being. Now that he has transformed into human form, he only needs to pay attention to his metallic green-gold skin and the mysterious vertical eyes between his eyebrows. Congratulations to the boss for taking this further. The 5 Shacks looked feverishly at the humanoid leader in front of them, who was a bit small for most mutants. Their keen senses could detect a fatal danger within the period of storage. Only the stupid bird glanced at a huge lump from time to time. It was indescribable, with a hint of obsessed desire in his fanatical eyes. Yuri turned around, and when he saw her look like this, his face instantly turned into black lines. Kate glanced disdainfully at the Ludvanix, and very considerately went to get some clothes to help Yuri put on. When everyone lined up again, Yuri stared at them and asked, "Do you still think the Eternals are strong?" Before the 5 people could answer, he continued, "We are the most powerful predators on this planet. We are the protectors of the origin of all civilizations in the universe. We are creatures that even the Creator is afraid of." Species, mutant race, I have noticed that some huge changes are coming. It will affect the entire universe, and the impact it will have can even be said to change the world. We wake up at the right time, and we are born to leave a deep mark on this new stage. In order to survive and excel, we must keep evolving, keep moving forward, and keep getting stronger. The Eternals on Earth are just the beginning. Our goal is to kill all Eternals in the universe. The great journey has just begun. At the same time, the top floor of Osborn Tower, the expression on Norman Osborn's face, who had just put down the phone, gradually became ferocious. "Damn Tony Stark. Connors, how dare you betray me?" Just now, the head of the military department personally called him, claiming that with the help of Connors, the real genius Tony Stark had developed a restoration that could be called a cross-era product. The drug, after experiments, can fully achieve the effect of curing serious injuries in a short period of time. It is certain that once put into use, it will greatly reduce the number of soldier deaths on the battlefield. It is different from the super soldier serum that improves the combat ability of a single body. It heals. The potion improved the combat capability of the entire legion in a disguised form. After discussions at the meeting, the military bosses decided to reduce financial support and policy tilt for Osborn's super soldier serum project. After all, compared to an unfinished product that has yet to see results, a practical healing agent is more important. It can impress the military officers who always focus on practicality. Norman frantically smashed everything that could be picked up in the office. The super soldier serum he personally hosted was not only a cooperation project with the military, but also his hope of curing the genetic disease in his family. You are only one step away from success, and victory is clearly within sight. Why did you, Connors, betray me and hand over the research results to that playboy Tony Stark? Anger, unwillingness, fear. Norman suddenly stopped and an extremely bold idea came to his mind. Connors transformed into Lizard Man by injecting a potion, but it may be because of this that he developed a potion that can perfectly regenerate severed limbs. The super soldier serum has also reached the final step. If I learn from Connors, can I also develop a truly harmless serum after injection? This idea quickly took root in his mind, sprouted branches and leaves, and soon formed a towering tree that covered all other thoughts. Norman ran to the laboratory, completed a series of preparations for the serum injection under the horrified gaze of the staff on duty, and then lay directly into the replica of the life cabin. Threads of green smoke quickly enveloped Norman in the glass cabin, and heart-rending screams immediately rang out in the airtight life cabin. I don't know how long it took, but the screams gradually replaced a penetrating evil smile, and the alloy the built hatch was kicked open, and a man with a ferocious expression and evil eyes walked out of Norman Osborn. End of this chapter. Chapter 37 Press Conference. After killing Ginge, everyone in Yuri's shop returned to peaceful life. Ethan clocked in and got off work every day. The 5 Shack mastered the energy release ability newly given by Yuri during the day, and followed Yi at night. The demons joined forces to fight crime in Hell's Kitchen next door. During this period, Tony came to his door once. The reason was that the artificial intelligence Jarvis discovered the fact that Yuri had used borrowed money to acquire Stark Industries stocks. The two had a wonderful fight under the witness of Ethan and others. The war of words ended with the bottom line of Yuri shall not interfere with the company's operations for no reason after taking control of the shares and will always support Tony's decisions about the company. which made a man whose mustache began to twitch with anger give up his pursuit of stock. 7 days later, the financial company where Yuri controlled all the top executives converted a total of $5,023 billion into Stark Industries stock. After a comprehensive evaluation, Yuri held about 18% of the shares, which was Stark. A veritable major shareholder of the industry. This was done very well. In order to express his gratitude, Yuri took the initiative to use his life energy to nurse them back to health, which was regarded as paying for the other party's consumption of various resources and connections. During the week after Tony learned the news, he immediately began to promote the rebirth potion. The overwhelming advertisements and videos of various disabled volunteers regaining their lives became popular throughout the Lighthouse country in just a few days. After the military came out to take the stand, dozens of countries around the world have unilaterally initiated massive orders to the yet-to-be formally established Rebirth pharmaceutical company that are estimated to be impossible to produce in several years. Boss, how are you? Ethan smoothed back the few hairs on his head and nervously adjusted the tie around his neck. He pushed up the glasses on the bridge of his nose and waited for Yuri's response rather uneasily, because he was worried about himself. He was extremely unconfident in the company's management level. After discussing with Yuri, he decided to become the agent for the 18% of Stark shares, while Yuri himself took over the role of Rebirth Pharmaceutical Company. Yuri gently smoothed the small wrinkles on his shoulders, carefully looked up and down, then smiled and said, "Ethan, I picked this outfit myself. You should be somewhat confident in my aesthetics. Look. It goes up nice, slim fit and low profile." At this time, the 5 shacks filed out of the stairs. Compared with before, their temperaments had changed a lot. To put it simply, they behaved more like humans rather than untamed beasts. The 3 of them, the male mutants, showed their might in black suits, while the 2 female mutants wore shawl dresses that highlighted the proud figures and beautiful faces. "Boss, it's time for us to go." Shaq raised his hand to look at the time on the watch, and put the black sunglasses on his breast pocket on his face. Tiger and Chat stood next to Ethan, and Shaq opened the small window for Yuri. The door of the shop today. The roles of the 5 people are bodyguards and female companions. Ethan is assigned 2 bodyguards, while Yuri has 2 female companions. The car was friendly, sponsored by the cheap dad who kicked him out of the house at the beginning. Yuri looked around and saw that it looked like the car he was driven out of. Sure enough, after opening the car door, cheap daddy Yuri Ambrosius was looking at him with a glass of red wine in his hand with approval. "Get in the car, my outstanding son. You are the fastest in the history of the family to complete a business from scratch. That one, your mother and I are truly proud of you." Yuri was too lazy to talk to him. After getting in the car, he just hugged the cheap lady sitting in the passenger seat gently, and then hugged him in front of his father, without any intention of taking him seriously. How her cheap mother Shaw gently covered her mouth, and her graceful and luxurious temperament was released like a tide when she frowned and smiled. She turned around and looked at Rob, who had a black line on his face, and mocked mercilessly, "It seems that my son is still giving birth to you. I'm angry, my dear Robert." Cough cough. Rob cleared his throat and placed the wine glass on the tray. The smooth driving of the car prevented it from causing even a single ripple. He looked at Yuri and his expression suddenly became serious. "Yuri, I admit that I cheated on you not long ago. What you did was a bit sudden, but your grandfather, me and the rest of the family came here this way." Yuri glanced at him and nodded nonchalantly. "I know. Actually, I don't mean to blame you. I just want to know if there are any secret rules in the Ambrosius family that I don't know about. You know, I don't really like this feeling of being kept in the dark and then passively accepting it." Rob's eyes flickered a few times, and he glanced at Vannex and Kate in Yuri's arms without trace. "There are indeed some more, but these things are a long story, and I hope to learn them in detail in the study. Tell you everything you need to know." Yuri raised his eyebrows. He knew that the family he entered by mistake was abnormal. It was a so-called wealthy family that died in 3 generations. How could there be a single lineage like Ambrosius, and the inheritance? Everyone is still keen on seeking death, but everyone is blessed with great luck, and there is an evil family that cannot die no matter what they encounter. Of course, except for the unlucky guy Yuri Ambrosius, who made him be targeted by himself, the leader of a mutant race that originated before human history. After clarifying the conflict, the atmosphere in the car quickly returned to normal. "I could only say that cheap mom was worthy of being a noble lady." In a few words, the topic was directed to the upcoming press conference, and Yuri naturally blended in. Although the golden eyes of the son character aroused doubts between the 2 of them, Yuri used his psychic powers to quickly make them accept the setting that his son should be like this. The car quickly drove into the venue, which was located in Stark Tower. Tony meant that the opening ceremony of the new company and the replacement of the weapons department by the Stark Energy department should be done at once. Yuri thought this was good, so he simply left it all to Tony. The car door opened, and Yuri took the initiative to get out of the car and pick up his mother. As expected, media from all walks of life quickly swarmed in and took photos frantically. Now their understanding of Yuri is still limited to the next successor of the Ambrosius family level. Just when they were about to prepare a press release for him titled "Mother is Kind and Son is Filial," a noble son of a wealthy family opened the door for his mother in person. They saw Yuri turning around and being directly hit by two people who could be called. The enchanting beauty crossed her arms from left to right. Click. 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 More violent shutter sounds came like a flood, and a series of various weird titles such as New York's Newest Playboy, The Tragedy of the Ambrosius Family, The Fallen Dutiful Son of a Rich Family appeared like fountains one after another, overwhelming everyone. Can't hold it down. All the reporters' faces were filled with excitement. This is more worthy of reporting than a loving mother and a filial son. At this moment, Yuri's very familiar voice came from the broadcast in the lobby on the first floor of Stark Tower. The artificial intelligence Jarvis said in a sonorous and powerful voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, the press conference will officially begin in half an hour. Please take your seats. Our protagonist will appear soon." End of this chapter. Chapter 38. The Green Goblin. "Excuse me." Yuri said hello to Pepper beside him, and then smiled harmlessly at Tony and said, "As long as I want, I can keep the appearance you see now before I die of old age." "Oh." Tony shrugged, trying to make his expression reflected in the mirror look less jealous. "That's really too bad. That would be awesome." Pepper, who was responsible for supervising Tony's makeup application, immediately lit up when he heard this, staring at Yuri's golden eyes with anticipation. "No woman can resist the temptation of ageless appearance," she said incoherently. Asked, "Is that true? I mean, Mr. Yuri, have you developed such a drug? When will it be put into production?" Yuri looked at the jealous Tony and smiled. He patted his chest and assured Pepper, "If one day I really develop such a product, you will definitely be the first to hear the news." Pepper wanted to talk to Yuri a few more words, but was pulled aside by Tony, who was finally freed from the makeup artist's hands. The former playboy spoke with a scumbag tone, "You will always be mine, CEO." "Pepper, whether you're getting older or not." Yuri was a gentleman and gave them a quiet environment, but Pepper finally pushed away Tony, who lowered his head a little bit. She smiled sheepishly at Yuri, who had been observing and studying seriously, and straightened her clothes. He ran out like a thief with his hair behind him. "What are you still doing standing here?" Tony glared at Yuri with great dissatisfaction. The main reason was that none of the 5 Kates were here. Tony, who was at home, felt that he could do it again. "You should just go out quietly just now, instead of standing there like you haven't seen anything before. Look at it like a fool in the world." Haha. Yuri walked into Tony, tapped his slender fingers gently on his chest, and felt a gentle life energy instantly. "My dear Tony, the reason I came to see you is to help you make further progress in the research and development of micro-reactors." When his fingers left Tony's chest, traces of black blood seeped out from his pores, condensing into a fist-sized blood ball in the air. Tony touched his chest and let out a long sigh of relief. He glanced at Yuri with gratitude, and then said arrogantly, "I don't think you can point fingers at me in this field." Yuri pinched the blood cell and easily extracted the palladium element from it. "The total amount is so small that it cannot be found without a microscope. In fact, I am just a messenger. The one who really guides you is your father, Howard Stark." Tony's face immediately darkened. "Yuri, it's not fun to make fun of my parents." Throwing the blood cells into the trash can, Yuri patted Tony on the shoulder. "You know, I took away those instruments in the underground laboratory, and I got some interesting things from them. Through some not-so-scientific means, I got some information left by your father. The Allies were defeated in the war 70 years ago, leaving behind a lot of advanced black technologies, a large part of which were absorbed by the Allies. Howard was the main researcher on many projects: the first-generation reactor on the top of the Stark Tower, the unfinished anti-gravity car. They all come from an infinite and mysterious energy body, the cosmic Rubik's Cube, etc. etc. Tony stopped Yuri. "Are you saying that all my father's research came from the defeated Allies?" "It does not matter." Yuri waved his hand and continued. "I learned that your father discovered a new element that can completely replace the palladium element you are using now. It is harmless and pollution-free, and it can also increase the energy of the reactor by several amounts. Level Tony sat on the chair leisurely. He looked at Yuri. Editor, you continue to make up. The palladium element is irreplaceable in the reactor. Besides, even if there really is the element you mentioned, why don't father tell me directly? Yuri raised his hand and looked at the time. There were still more than 10 minutes before the official start of the press conference. He pointed at his watch and chose to keep the story short. Your father's research is under the supervision of the government, and you know very well that the Lighthouse state. What kind of people are those people? If they master this element, they will not think of world peace, but world domination. If I let you know, it means letting everyone know. Okay, Tony shrugged, temporarily accepting the reason why his father didn't tell him, but then he had a new question. Since the new elements have been discovered, haven't they been produced and preserved? No. Yuri shook his head and pointed at his brain. I have to admit that Stark is a very smart person. You knocked out the micro-reactor in the cave, and your father deduced it out of thin air under heavy surveillance. A new element with endless potential. I accept your compliment. Tony stooped down like an English gentleman and stared into Yuri's eyes. I don't believe that with your character, you would tell me this information for free. Indeed, Yuri saw clearly and frankly stated his needs. I want to participate in the entire manufacturing process of the new element reactor and the research and development of the Mark armor. Tony frowned and looked Yuri up and down to know what he was really thinking. You shouldn't need a battle armor to enhance your combat power, right? I won't even make any armor other than steam armor. I just need the level of technology contained in it to improve some of my abilities. Yuri raised his hand and looked at the time again. There are still 5 minutes until the press conference officially starts. Tony, the information is hidden in the Howard relics you got from S.H.I.E.L.D. You must have seen the videotape, right? The new element is on the table behind your father. Ladies and gentlemen, Jarvis's impassioned voice sounded in the hall. Energy and medical care are two areas with unlimited potential in the new world, and Stark Industries and Rebirth Pharmaceuticals are the well-deserved leaders of the new world. Today is a historic day, the beginning of a new era. Let us invite today's protagonist, Tuo. Boom. 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 The street outside the building was shattered by several sudden pumpkin-shaped bombs. The shockwave carried broken glass and smashed into the crowd, causing almost some panic. There's only one protagonist today. A horrifying laugh came from the sky, and a green-armored man with a flying machine swooped down. That's me, the Green Goblin. End of this chapter. Chapter 39. Tony and Peter. After all, Norman was defeated by the dark side of his heart, and became the first generation of Green Goblins after putting on a hideous and terrifying green suit. But the difference from the original plot is that the current Green Goblin has not been pressured by the directors of Osborn Company, so when he first appeared in the public eye, he did not kill all the directors and then leave, but took the Connor's anger at betrayal and jealousy of Tony descended on the press conference at this moment. Destroy them all. Pumpkin bombs dropped from high altitude one by one, and were accurately thrown into the participants who were scrambling to escape from Stark Tower. After several deafening explosions, some people lost their lives because they were too close, and more people were knocked to the ground by the aftermath, suffering some minor or serious injuries. GGG. After being blackened, Norman installed two downward-facing loudspeakers on the aircraft in an extremely coquettish way, so that everything he said could be heard by everyone present. Tony Stark. You despicable and shameless evil thief, you stole the rebirth potion that originally belonged to me. Today I must kill you. Tony. Pepper, who hurried over, looked at Tony with a puzzled look on his face, while the latter looked at Yuri with the same expression. Didn't you make the rebirth potion? Why did the guy outside say it was something that originally belonged to him? Is it Connor's? No. Yuri dragged Tony to the elevator and said, Connor's is dead. The potion that belongs to the guy outside should be the lizard potion developed by Connor's. There are too many people paying attention here, and I can't take action. Go put on your Mark armor. After all, this is your press conference. It will be difficult to explain to the outside world if there are too many casualties. Well, in the end it's up to me to turn the tide. Tony walked into the exclusive elevator and told the ubiquitous artificial intelligence Jarvis, start to activate Mark IV. I want to put it on in the shortest possible time. The elevator door slowly closed, and Shaq, who was in a black suit and black sunglasses, came over with Vannex and Kate. Boss, Tiger and Chat will be responsible for ensuring the safety of Ethan and Ambrosius. Do you want to save those ordinary people outside? Under Pepper's disbelieving gaze, Yuri said with an expression that had nothing to do with him, no need. Humans have their own police and soldiers to protect them. We just need to watch all this happen. Remaining hands-off is the most appropriate option. Before Pepper could speak, he added, Tony is busy transforming to fight that Green Goblin flying in the sky. Pepper, you can organize people to do something for the ordinary people lying on the ground who are dying of injuries. What? I think taking out part of the rebirth potion is a good choice. Not only can it save their lives, but it can also take advantage of this wave of terrorist attacks to create a wave of free advertising for the potion. Pepper's expression changed several times, and finally gave Yuri a complicated look and turned to leave as Tony's most considerate CEO. She knew very well how powerful Yuri's bodyguards were. If they participated in the battle, no matter what, they would at least prevent the annoying guy above his HUD from attacking ordinary people, but he stopped the bodyguards from asking for help. But then gave himself a practical rescue plan. This gave her a strange feeling, as if Yuri was deliberately staying out of it. Tony ran to the prepared Mark IV on the dressing table, and absorbed Yuri's steam armor-wearing concept. Now it only takes a few seconds to put on the armor, and he no longer has to stand in a fixed position and wait. The robotic arm is assembled part by part. He only needs to walk in, turn around, put the Mark IV on his body like clothes, and then the armor will automatically close and close. When the virtual display on the mask lights up, he can activate flight mode and fly straight into the sky. The best one has to be Tony Stark, not leaving the ceiling that Jarvis had opened earlier. He insisted on smashing the tempered glass that served as the wall with his head, using countless broken glass shards that shone brightly in the sunlight as special effects for him to join the battlefield. Wow! A familiar tights with spider webs leaped in front of him. The little spider with a broken mouth shot webs one by one from the wrist, and precisely stuck to the scattered pumpkin bombs. Throw them into the empty sky before exploding. While the Green Goblin was replenishing his ammunition, he once again swung up to Tony in his armor. I thought I saw you rushing out of Stark Tower. Yes, that's right, you made that big hole mark. So, you are Mr. Tony Stark, right? Tony used a palm cannon to destroy a pumpkin bomb flying towards here and advance. The artificial intelligence Jarvis activated the small tracking missile on the shoulder of the suit, easily intercepting all the bombs falling to the ground. He stood still and output left and right. The Green Goblin jumped sideways and said to Little Spider without looking back, "Yes, I am Tony Stark. Nice to meet you. Peter Parker, a student at Midtown High School who lives in Queens. What?" The little spider almost missed the thread and fell. His mind was racing. Is it really you, Mr. Stark? But what did you say about Peter Parker? With all due respect, you have mistaken the wrong person. I really don't know. I know there is such a person. Tony turned around and said to Peter half jokingly and half threatening, "As a minor, school is where you should stay. I think it is necessary to have a chat with your Aunt May. Maybe she doesn't. It mean there is something wrong with your family's education." The ever-changing battlefield left no time for Peter to talk nonsense. When the Green Goblin on the aircraft saw that all methods had been defeated, he actually turned the aircraft around, dropped a bunch of pumpkin bombs and prepared to escape. "Leave it to you, little Peter." Tony waved his hand mischievously at the little spider. The flight system locked onto the fast-flying Green Goblin in the distance, and accelerated to catch up in an instant. Only Spider-Man, who was full of panic because his identity was called out, was left spraying spider silk, sticking pumpkin bombs one by one and throwing them into the sky. What should I do? What should I do? It sorbed on the smooth glass exterior wall of Stark Tower. Peter felt that he had encountered a huge problem that he had never experienced in his life. After cooperating with the police and soldiers on the ground to rescue several people who were crushed under boulders and cars, he swayed following the spider silk. He quickly left the messy battle scene from a distance. He saw Tony in battle armor carrying a man in green armor with his hood removed as he flew back to the top floor of the building. With his keen eyesight, he even saw the man waving goodbye to him on the second floor that he hadn't noticed. Yuri's golden pupils were flowing with light. Spider-Man, super strength, spider sense, super coordination, flying over walls. I remember that the reason why the second and third generations of Spider-Man could fly over walls and fly over walls was because they had static electricity absorption capacity. This thing has been used well. It should be more than that after all. Spiders can fly too. End of this chapter. Chapter 40. The press conference ended abruptly. A group of reporters and people from all walks of life who were injured by the Green Goblin and then completely cured by Stark's security team took to the streets to tell the world about the magic of the rebirth potion with their own experiences. However, it didn't take long before they were called out by Yuri himself. The ambulance that arrived took him away forcibly for nutritional supplementation. Although the finished rebirth potion contains a high-energy charged nutrient solution, the energy required to regenerate a leg or even half a body is far more than that. He doesn't want these guys whose senses are temporarily blinded by adrenaline to be on the street. He fell to the ground no matter how far away he was, as if he had been injected with a rebirth potion that would leave serious sequelae. After saying goodbye to the Ambrosius couple who had to go home early to prepare, Yuri met Sheriff George, who arrived first and then arrived in the exclusive elevator on the second floor. This is Gwen's father, whom Dr. Lizard once encountered when he was trying to activate the Canary device on top of the Osborn Tower. In fact, this conscientious police chief has been having a lot of headaches recently. The originally chaotic Hell's Kitchen has been experiencing frequent mass deaths of people recently. Although they are all gang members who do not want to spare their lives, there is always an awkward feeling of having to wipe people's butts. It felt like he couldn't catch the figure, and it was even more nonsense to kill him. Apart from going in every morning to clean up the corpses, there was nothing he could do. Maybe let Spider-Man give it a try. During the night of the Canary device, he saw the true face of the little spider, Peter Parker. Later, the two found time to have a serious talk, and finally reached some agreements that would never be seen in the light. In short, Peter selectively obeyed George's orders, and in exchange, the New York police will never embarrass him again. Judging from the situation in recent days, cooperation has achieved good results. George was stunned for a moment after seeing Yuri, but he quickly realized that this was Tony's friend or lawyer. His professionalism made him want to cross-examine him, but when he saw those golden eyes, he couldn't help but want to cross-examine him. After going to bed, this thought slowly subsided again for some unknown reason. Ding dong, welcome, distinguished Mr. Ambrosius and Sheriff George. As soon as the elevator door opened, he heard Jarvis's polite greeting. Yuri smiled and nodded to the camera as usual, while George's performance seemed like he was about to draw a gun and take aim. After all, he was everywhere but couldn't be found anywhere. The sound of entities is indeed beyond the imagination of people in the Sierra. Following the guide and entering the living room, 3 people were already sitting on the soft sofa. They were Tony, who had a smile on his face since he had returned from victory and teased the little spider, and Tony, who kept playing with a tube of rebirth potion and playing with it from time to time. A certain military man looked at Mark's armor standing aside, and the mother-in-law Nick, one eye was covered by a black eye patch that was similar to his skin color, and kept looking at Yuri, who was walking towards him. Fury. When Yuri got closer, he discovered that there was a green goblin named Norman Osborn lying on the ground with a face full of veins and only the ability to move his eyes. Please take a seat, Mr. Ambrosius. The black-braised egg turned into a guest and invited Yuri to sit down in Tony's Stark Tower. He crossed his hands on his chest, looked at Yuri with one eye and said, "According to the information we know, Mr. Yuri, I have never experienced a systematic biology education, and I would like to know why you developed the rebirth potion. Is it related to the fact that you turned into golden eyes after working in Iraq during the summer?" "Hey," the smile on Tony's face disappeared instantly. He straightened up from the sofa, exuding the rare majesty of a superior. "That one-eyed one, this is my territory. Yuri is my friend. You have no right to interrogate him here." Yuri chose the largest sofa and sat down. When he passed by the Green Goblin, he squatted down to feel the state of his soul. The Green Goblin, like the Hulk, was a deformed product of the sub-personality suppressing the main personality. Especially after some common sense in Yuri, he felt that he should be able to defeat the Hulk effortlessly. Similar to how Guya slapped out the Hulk's soul, Yuri could also help his master Gabbana subdue the Hulk, the Hulk's secondary personality. His strength is limited to his physical body. In the soul realm, he is truly a younger brother among younger brothers. "Okay," the soldier said, "the purpose of our gathering here today is to discuss 2 issues. One is the rebirth potion, and the other is your armor." "Tony, I don't think it's anything to discuss." Tony crossed his legs and said with a magnanimous face, "The rebirth potion is clearly priced and available worldwide. If the military wants to purchase it in large quantities, it can give a discount. As for the armor, I don't have any armor. It is known that I am in a bandit's den in Afghanistan. He was seriously injured, and the thing standing over there is just my mechanical prosthetic limb, which is used to facilitate travel and speed up recovery. The armor, I said I would never make weapons again. The facts will not change because of your quibbles." Black Luodin's single eye glanced back and forth between Tony and the armor. "Believe me, Tony, this is a technology you can't master. If we can't reach an agreement here, you may be targeted by the entire Congress. The truth will not yield to your threats." Tony glanced at Yuri, who was silent on the sidelines, and decided to give his brother a hand and let him into the water. He cleared his throat and said, "In fact, even if I give the armor to you, you can't afford it. First of all, it's the cost. The Mark armor uses a lot of alloys that are unique to me. Their cost per gram may be as high as thousands of dollars, as well as various operating systems, maintenance, and most importantly, the ultra-high computing power artificial intelligence Jarvis who coordinates the entire fuselage. Without him, the entire armor is just a tin can that can resist damage, and Jarvis, there is absolutely no way I can give it to you. Tony displayed a lot of things in a long-winded manner. All kinds of professional technical terms made the marinated egg, the military man and the sheriff frown, but Yuri didn't listen at all. He was fooling anyway, so let Tony repeat it. Maybe even he himself forgot what he just said. In summary, Tony took a sip of wine to soothe his slightly dry throat. The annual cost of a set of mechanical prostheses is about $2,000 billion US. What do you think? Are you still interested in getting one? This directly excludes Sheriff George. Seeing that Lou Dan and the soldier fell silent, Tony smiled evilly at Yuri and continued, but, seeing all four people looking at him, he cleared his throat angrily. In order to escape when I was a hostage in the bandits' den, I actually designed a relatively simple mechanical prosthesis. Because I fled in a panic at the time, its design drawings finally fell into the hands of Ambrosius in front of him. I have to admit that Yuri is really a great genius. After getting the drawings, he relied on his unfinished mechanical knowledge to in the great spirit of daring to explore the mysterious field, even in the absence of micro-reactors, created a new set of energy supply methods. You may have seen it during the surveillance of Canary Night. Yes, it is the mechanical prosthetic limb that far surpasses me in all aspects of performance. It is a powerful, domineering, mysterious and extraordinary combination of scrap metal and scrap metal, the steam armor. Yuri stiffly swallowed a drink in his mouth under everyone's gaze, and cursed Tony's 18th generation of ancestors in his heart. Although throwing the steam armor out to take the blame was something that had been discussed long ago, you should at least tell him in advance. Let me say it. Putting down the wine glass, he looked at the ripples in the glass and said, Tony is basically right. The steam armor is priced at $9,999 million US per set. Do you want to try one? End of this chapter. Chapter 41. The House of Ambrosius. After some deliberation, under the strange eyes of the military man, Halo Dan skillfully used his superb bargaining skills to cut off 1/3 of the $9,999 steam armor from the chest, and finally priced it at $6,666 million US. Come to Stark Tower to pick up the goods tomorrow night. After agreeing on a time and place, Yuri and Tony saw off the 3 black braised eggs together, and then returned to the living room again. The Green Goblin was still lying on the ground. The main reason was that as soon as Tony saw the veins on his face subside a little, he immediately asked everyone to put on earplugs and then took out a paralysis device to apply it on him. After 4 times, the Green Goblin was already dead. Foaming at the mouth and falling into coma with the acquiescence of the 3 major violent agencies of the military and police, Norman's disposal power has actually fallen into Yuri's hands. He lightly kicked the Green Goblin's armor. Yuri turned to Tony and said, Sibin has many useful patents and laboratories. Rebirth Pharmaceutical Company cannot rely solely on rebirth potions. If possible, we can get something worthwhile from him. Tony looked at the Green Goblin on the ground without any sympathy in his eyes. What was originally a good cross-generational product launch conference turned into a mess because of the appearance of this guy. If he hadn't recognized Norman's face after pulling off the mask, he had already sent the opponent to death with a palm cannon. Ever since he personally killed Obadiah, Tony's methods have become more and more fierce. When he went to solve the problems in the Middle East from time to time, he would kill his enemies without hesitation. I don't think this old guy will obey me. Is there anything you can do, Yuri? Through the profit of information, he knew that the Osborn family had a certain genetic disease inherited from generation to generation. The reason why Norman transformed into the Green Goblin was due to the injection of some unproven strengthening agent. He raised his finger lightly and drew a ray of the golden life breath penetrated into the Green Goblin's body and probed carefully. He discovered that Norman's genetic chain was slowly disintegrating uncontrollably. This process was not rapid, but judging by this speed, he might die before the 50.00% possibility of certain death came. Unfortunately, life energy can be repaired, but Yuri withdrew the energy after repairing 1/10 of it. Under Tony's fearful gaze, his eyes turned pure white for an instant, but they recovered again after just a few seconds. A brilliant golden color. Okay, Norman has a genetic disease, and I cured 1/10 of it for him. After waking up, this will become a bargaining chip for you to negotiate with him. In addition, The evil thoughts in his soul are a bit strange. Although I completely wiped them out, but it seems to be able to regenerate infinitely from the main soul, so you should pay attention, and it is best to complete all the procedures in a short time. After giving instructions to Tony, he turned around and wanted to leave, because the original Ambrosius family seemed to be quite mysterious. He wanted to understand the secrets as soon as possible, and it would be best to get some improvement in strength, but Tony obviously didn't intend to let him leave just like that. The former took out a videotape and shook it. The research and development of new elements allows you to participate. But the premise is that you must help me find this new element. Yuri shrugged indifferently, and after Tony inserted the videotape and started playing it, he fast-forwarded to the scene of future world blueprint and said, "Jarvis, if you can, please scan this picture and put it vertically." "Sorry, Yuri," Jarvis explained in a regretful tone, "there is no corresponding equipment installed in the living room. If you want to do this, please move to the laboratory with Tony." Yuri patted Tony, who had already discovered something. As he walked towards the elevator, he said to Jarvis above him, "Then let Tony go by himself. I have something else to do, so I'll take the first step." Jarvis heard this and said, "There are already vehicles waiting at the door. Goodbye, Yuri." The Ambrosius family is located in a small forest on the outskirts of New York City. I remember that Yuri didn't like living here when he was young, because every time night fell, the forest that enveloped the mansion would look particularly eerie. The person in charge of driving was one of Stark's bodyguards. Yuri had not seen the other person in his memory. It seemed that he was an ordinary person who had no role in the main Marvel event. However, the other person's driving skills were good and he was unhappy along the way. It wasn't slow, it was smooth and didn't even make Yuri feel any bumps. Just as the car drove into the only road in the forest, he keenly sensed a faint but real energy fluctuation. This was a new sense created after swallowing up Ginger's ability. In the past, he was like a child in the mother's body. A baby can only passively absorb the cosmic energy floating in the sky and earth, but now he can not only perceive their existence more clearly, but also subjectively mobilize it to his own advantage. This gave him some guesses about the abilities of the Eternals, but now is not the time to think about this. The weak energy fluctuations disappeared briefly, and then Yuri felt that the cosmic energy here seemed to be a little closer to him. They showed pure joy, as if they were welcoming the return of their master magic. The car entered the gate, bypassed the stone fountain statue that also had energy fluctuations, and stopped in front of the steps of the mansion. Yuri didn't wait for the driver to get out of the car and took the initiative to open the door. After saying goodbye politely, he opened the door and entered the house with ease. The interior was full of bright lights and splendor. Before I could take a few turns to reminisce about the past, I saw the old butler with gray hair and good spirits walking down the stairs. Yuri naturally showed a friendly smile, walked up to him and shouted, "Adam. Long time no see." With a smile on his face, old Adam looked up and down at the young man in front of him, who he had single-handedly raised and called half a grandson. He patted Yuri on the shoulder and joked, "I thought I would never see you return to the family before I died." It's over. The two walked into the restaurant while chatting. The 4-meter diameter circular revolving table was filled with a variety of dishes. Cheap parents had already started eating before Yuri arrived. "Why did it come so slowly? Your father and I waited for a while but didn't see you coming. We were afraid that the food would get cold, so we ate it directly. See if there's anything else you want to eat. If so, ask Adam to tell the kitchen to do it." As leaders in the catering industry, the lunch of the Ambrosius family certainly shows the extravagance of the capitalist society. Although there are only 3 people, the food on the table is enough for at least 30 people to go around. Yuri ate sloppily for a while, controlling his food intake within the range of ordinary people. He didn't intend to show too much in front of his original parents, unless the other party was as abnormal as him. After eating and drinking, Rob stood up first. He waved to Yuri, who had been prepared. After the latter followed, he walked towards the study in a leisurely manner. His tone became low and mysterious. "Before I learn all the secrets of the family, Yuri, I have a question that I want you to answer. Do you believe in magic?" End of this chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42. Yuri was a little at a loss. In the Marvel Universe, Merlin is at the top of the food chain. He controls time and space and is known as the almighty guardian of the universe. "Do you want to play so big? I just randomly found a good-looking guy. How could he be related to a being who can beat up the God Team? At a certain moment, Yuri had the idea of escape immediately. Without him, if Merlin found out that his descendants had been usurped by an inhuman existence, even if he had long transcended reality and ignored the world, as long as a little accident happened it might cause him to be crushed to death. Yes, we have the noblest blood flowing in our bodies, and we have innate blessings and blessings. Robert pointed to several portraits on the wall of the study room and said, "This blessing blesses us that no matter how many difficulties we encounter, we can still find the vitality of existence. This is why your grandfather participated in the war unscathed, and I am passionate about because of the extreme challenge." Rob carefully took out a certain book on the bookshelf, and then took down the second and third books in a certain order. The books of different thicknesses formed a wonderful formation on the table, and on Luo after Bo placed the last book in a special place, violent energy fluctuations came from the book. Under Yuri's gaze, traces of cosmic energy turned from virtual to real, and finally condensed into a beautiful pendant suspended in midair. This is the Holy Sword and the Holy Shield. Rob's eyes were full of enthusiasm when he looked at the pendant. He recalled, every direct member of the family has an opportunity to be baptized with holy objects after completing the trials passed down from generation to generation. Baptism can make you immune to all diseases and live a long and healthy life, and can also test whether you have magical talent and whether you can accept the inheritance from your great ancestors. Yuri Ambrosius, my son, please wear the holy object on your chest now. Yuri pondered for a moment, then carefully stretched his hands towards the pendant suspended in midair. A simple chain slowly appeared, and the pendant landed on his hand as if it had a self-awareness. A warmth that touched the soul swept through the whole body, and Yuri lost all control over his body in an instant, and countless golden lines representing various abilities of the Eternals emerged one by one under the influence of some mysterious force. They slowly merged and merged. Some of the mysterious and complex lines became thicker, while others became thinner or simply disappeared. The chain and the pendant were slowly put around Yuri's neck. Then the pendant, which originally seemed to be welded together, slowly separated from the Holy Sword and the Holy Shield. The chain was divided into two and connected to the end of the hilt of the Holy Sword and the grip of the Holy Shield. The two holy objects fell on the palm of Yuri's unconsciously raised hand, and then penetrated into Yuri's skin from the real world, leaving marks that looked like tattoos on them. The slightly weird golden devil pupils in Yuri's eyes slowly approached and merged, eventually forming new dark golden pupils in the shape of concentric circles. Then this unknown transformation came to an end, and mysterious powers that could not be detected by the naked eye slowly exited the body. The dominance, after success and fame, all returned to the two marks on the palm of the hand and disappeared. Ho ho ho, as if he was about to die of suffocation but suddenly encountered fresh air. Yuri, who regained control of his body, gasped heavily. He raised his hand and looked at the two lifelike tattoos on his palm with apprehension. These two guys dominated the evolution just now, and the incomparable tyrannical force easily took over his dominance over the body. Even if the remaining prestige exuded, it also eclipsed his soul, which few earthlings can match. Forced to the very corner of consciousness, but fortunately, it has no ill intentions toward him, even if Yuri's soul is a ferocious mutant. How are you, my son? Rob could vaguely detect the changes in Yuri, and coupled with everything he had just witnessed, he had reason to suspect that his son had regained the ancestral inheritance that had been lost for 3 generations. Not bad. Yuri tried to mobilize the energy-gathering superpower from Ginge, but found that all the superpowers in his body were fused together, combining into a seed that exuded a strong original aura in his body. Now there is no such thing as Ginge's energy-gathering superpower, Ajik's healing superpower, etc. All the superpowers absorbed by Yuri have been completely transformed under the action of seeds. Became Yuri's superpower. Seeing that he seemed to be feeling himself, Rob asked cautiously, "So, have you learned any magic?" No. A golden spark appeared out of thin air, and then countless sparks rotated and expanded. Then, under Yuri's gaze, a bald woman wearing a yellow robe and holding a folding fan came out. She looked Yuri up and down, her deep eyes seemed to be able to see through him. No one spoke. In the increasingly solid atmosphere, Guyi smiled slightly and actually bent towards Yuri's waist. "It's an honor to meet you, the inheritor of the holy magician Merlin and the great leader of the mutant race, Mr. Yuri Ambrosius. I am the Earth's contemporary supreme mage, Ancient One." Yuri could feel that the person she was bending over was Merlin, whom she represented, and not the leader of the mutant race who was like a polished commander. She wanted to bow politely in return, but the 2 tattoos on her palm suddenly erupted with piercing heat, apparently telling Yuri that the Ancient One is not worthy of receiving a gift in return. Up, Yuri smiled awkwardly, and was about to explain when he heard Guyi speak first. It doesn't matter, the inheritance of the holy magician Merlin will stay in the alien space of Kamataj. If you have time, you can go to Bleecker, Manhattan, New York. Street number 177A, show them the mark on your palm, and someone will take you to Kamal Taj. As soon as he finished speaking, Guyi raised his feet and retreated into the portal. Yuri could see that there seemed to be an endless void, but there was not a single star in sight, only endless darkness that seemed to be able to swallow everything. The portal closed instantly. Except for Yuri, who could feel the slightest fluctuation in the space, everything else in the study seemed to be exactly the same as a few minutes ago. So, have you learned any magic? The exact same voice, the exact same tone, the exact same expression, and the exact same movements. Yuri narrowed his eyes. Is Merlin's inheritance so important that it is worth using the time stone? Some thoughts passed quickly, and a smile appeared on Yuri's face again. He gathered an energy ball the size of a green bean at his fingertips, and blasted a medium-deep hole into the hard door of the study. He is really happy, because today he finally solved the only existence on the Earth that can pose a fatal threat to him at this stage. Of course, it cannot be said to be solved. Looking at Guyi's attitude today, it should be said that he has eliminated possible enemies in the future. Became friends in the same camp in advance. Not only that, from now on, regardless of any abnormal behavior he exhibits, he can blame the cause on Kamal Taj, who lives in seclusion in the mountains, run fast, can hypnotize, build mechas and heal wounds. It's all because I learned magic. Do not believe? Then go find Master Guyi to verify it yourself. End of this chapter. Chapter 43, Meteorite. Yuri refused old Adam's suggestion to send him a cart to take him back, and chose to run home on his own legs. Now his abilities have been integrated and unified with the help of the mark on the palm of his hand, but the specific use after the integration still requires him to explore it personally, and he does not plan to go to the New York temple to rush to Kamataj in a short time. Learn magic, because Tony called not long ago and said that he had finished the virtual model of the new element. The official manufacturing date will be in the past few days. The expensive suit was torn apart because it couldn't withstand the wind pressure generated by Yuri's running. The rags danced in the wind. Yuri was so annoyed that he tore off all the tops and put on a special suit at a certain jumping moment. Ultra-high elastic wear-resistant set purchased his speed became faster and faster, and his limbs swung and waved to form a shadow. A golden trail that was more than 10 meters long was left behind him, and it tended to get longer and longer. The divine speed in Makri's hands can drag out a golden light tail that stretches several kilometers, but Yuri can clearly feel that he is making rapid progress. Under the influence of the mutant tribe's powerful evolutionary factors, he believes that he is one step closer to surpassing Makri. The day is not too far away. Yuri suddenly stopped. The power of space disappeared in a flash, eliminating the huge kinetic energy generated during his rapid running. In front of him was an abandoned suburban park, and what made the sound was a black meteorite falling from the sky. Little Spider is in a bad mood today after being called out by Tony. He had been trembling with fear, fearing that at some point a piece of news like Spider-Man's true identity as Peter Parker would suddenly appear on the big screen on the street, which would cause him to spend the whole day. They were all listless and returned home early after helping some people casually. After learning that Aunt May would not go home after working overtime tonight, he directly put on a hood and swung from the bustling city center to this suburban garden. This was the place where he had his first date with his first girlfriend, Mary, who later fell in love with her. His best friends, Harry and Peter, sent their best wishes. Whenever Peter is unhappy or can't think about it, he will come here alone. Due to the desertion in recent years, it has a sense of tranquility close to the original jungle. No one wants to step on the path full of wild grass and mosquitoes, so no one will bother you at all. But something seems to have gone wrong today. Peter, who was lying on the worn-out rocking chair, suddenly opened his eyes and rolled over to the side. When he raised his head to see the source of the crisis, a meteorite falling from the sky accurately hit the rocking chair he had just been lying on, causing it to shatter countless times. The rocks scattered in all directions, and Peter relied on his strong perception and extraordinary agility to easily avoid all the scorching high-temperature rocks. When all the smoke and dust dissipated, Peter saw the true face of the meteorite. It was a large black stone with a few finger-sized holes scattered on it. Relying on the boldness of an expert, he cautiously approached and squatted down to observe carefully. Crack! A ball of black mucus suddenly spurted out and smeared on Peter's hand, which was blocked in time. It quickly stuck to it as if it were alive, and Peter couldn't shake it off even if he tried his best. "What are you doing?" The little spider suddenly turned around. A man with an extremely handsome face pushed aside the bushes that were growing wildly. He looked at himself with a strange expression as if he was dancing. The most impressive thing was that the man's eyes turned out to be strange. Dark golden color. The little spider had many thoughts for a moment. The thing stuck to my hand must be the legendary alien creature, right? Should I tell this man that there are aliens here? If I tell him, he will. I also told the police. As the first contact person, I won't be arrested in section for study, right? The more he thought about it, the scarier he became. Peter put his hands behind his back and said, "It's just a meteorite. There's nothing interesting here, sir. I suggest you leave as soon as possible, just like I am doing now." Yuri watched the little spider run away quickly as if it was running away. He shook his head and ignored it. He saw the black mucus sticking to the opponent's palm. If he guessed correctly, it should be a symbiote? The meteorite that smashed into the ground gradually cooled down, and the sound of liquid flowing invariably sounded from the holes on it. After a while, 3 or 4 viscous black fluids fell to the ground. They had a firm goal and rushed towards them, eyes widening. All white. Yuri, its weak symbiotes without a parasitic host are just a puddle of moving mud. The difficulty of controlling their minds is no different than controlling a slightly smarter cat or dog. Yuri raised his hand and pulled out some materials from the dilapidated recliner not far away. This action caused the recliner to be scrapped in pieces. It is estimated that the little spider will not be able to lie on it to pieces mind when he comes here again under the control of Yuri. The materials obtained from the recliner deformed and fused, forming spherical containers to put all the symbiotes that crawled out. He shook the simple iron ball in disgust. The reason why he helped Tony so much? This is because the improvement of manufacturing capabilities can only draw inferences from analogies, but cannot be made out of thin air. In other words, he will never have the same extreme research and development capabilities as Tony, but as long as he learns the manufacturing process of something, he can be better than anyone else at carrying out modifications and variations at the same level. Come on. Ignoring the meteorite that was still emitting a trace of heat, Yuri put away the containers containing the symbiote and turned away in the direction of the shop. He remembered that there would be a company called Life Company in the future, exploring the symbiote planet in space and bringing the venom back to Earth. In order not to change the plot too much, this meteorite that is useless after taking it should be left here. His keen hearing helped him capture the sound of propellers miles away. He was not interested in whether it was a journalist or a government official. He left immediately after eliminating the traces that he and Little Spider had ever existed here. He is very busy tonight. Not only does he have to complete the steam armor that will be delivered to Black Braznag and Gunman tomorrow night before Kate and Vannex come back from fighting crime, he also wants to study the symbiote in the container. I heard that this thing gets stronger when it encounters the strong, and becomes weak when it encounters the weak. It is a group that really only knows how to fight against the power of others. It's just that there might be another consciousness in his mind that he can't accept, so he wants to try to see if he can use his ability to completely erase the souls and consciousness of the symbiotes, turning them into a single biological weapon that is unconscious and autonomously controllable. If he succeeds, he also wants to help the other party multiply the offspring, strive to put on a pair of symbiote battle armor for every tribe member, which is beneficial but harmless mutants plus symbiote. That must be interesting. End of this chapter. Chapter 44. Venomous Spider-Man appears. Go back to Commercial Street. He conveniently destroyed several invisible cameras hidden on the street and pointed at his own shop. These things were no longer a matter of thought. Halu Dan ordered his subordinates to arrange them, and they might be able to upload data in real time. Number 1 said. The angle of view feels like it is being pinched. The first floor of the shop was empty. Ethan left a note on the counter that said, "The meals delivered by Hell's Kitchen are stored in the refrigerator." Yuri walked to the refrigerator and found that there were some of them were not put into the refrigerator for refrigeration. When I opened the refrigerator, I saw that they were almost bursting out. He wondered whether he should do less in Hell's Kitchen. After all, the 5 shacks fought crime every night, and the money they earned from doing so was more than 100, if not 10,000 million. In addition, they had basically learned the skills of human beings. The way of survival is completely self-sufficient, and there is no need to support it by yourself. It took half an hour to fill up my stomach. For mutants with huge appetites, although eating does not take much effort, it really takes a lot of time to be full. It seems that we need to seize the time to research some high-energy foods. Don't waste your precious 24 hours a day on filling your stomach. Bang! A large amount of materials and the first steam armor created by Yuri hit the floor heavily on the second floor. The magic lines engraved on the small shop disappeared in a flash, alleviating the unbearable weight of life on ordinary building materials. I still need to change my house. Yuri shook his head. There have been a lot of things going on recently. But as the saying goes, put on your pants first and then your shoes. Be a grandson first and then a master. You have to eat your meals one bite at a time and do things one by one. The first thing he had to do was to make some improvements to the first generation steam armor, such as integrating various modeled steel materials on the outer shell so that it would not look too obvious and cheap before it was painted in the later stage, such as weakening its capabilities in certain aspects such as speed, liftoff, and endurance prevent him from showing too dazzling attributes. For example, improving the energy absorption array as the core of energy and engraving some things in it that are useless or will cause damage if touched too much. The anti-theft magic that will instantly detonate the entire suit of armor. More than 2 hours later, the 5 shacks who pushed in the door saw 2 war machines that were no worse than the unpainted war machines. They were even better in size and sense of pressure than the second generation steam battle armor. Yuri looked at the time, but it was only 3 in the morning. In the past, the 5 guys would not come back until the sky was slightly bright. Why did you come back so early today? Vanix rushed to the side of the steam armor and looked at the iron king in front of her curiously. Because it looked really good, she couldn't help but bend her fingers and tap it twice. Boss, Night Demon Xia said that Hell's Kitchen has almost been purified into paradise on Earth by the few of us, and he plans to rest for a few days, and then work hard to find Kingpin's lair and capture him in one fell swoop. Clang. Clang. The unactivated steam battle armor was just a pile of scraps of broken copper and iron. How could it withstand the light blow from Vanix, the veteran of the mutant race? 2 potholes the size of a baby's fist immediately appeared in it. On the originally smooth surface of the armor, when Vanix looked at Yuri's elongated face, he knew that tonight he would have to go through another experience of close at hand but out of reach and snatch it but find that you can't beat it again tonight. What a tragic journey. Go away. Kate crossed her arms and looked at the stupid bird that had fled, feeling deeply grateful in her heart. She had a great teammate who would never let go of her chain in battle, and a pig opponent who was absolutely not smart when fighting for mating rights. Moreover, when both of them were named Vanix, their lives were so happy and beautiful. During the final debugging to confirm that everything was correct, Yuri casually smoothed the 2 holes made by Vanix, put them into the black ball, and then went upstairs with Kate. After taking a few steps, he suddenly noticed something was wrong behind me, so I turned around and met 3 hungry eyes. Boss, when can we go to the North Pole? The 3 of us are almost suffocated. That's right, boss, you have to find us a girlfriend quickly. Yuri was speechless. He and his clansmen had just solved the problem of eating, and then he felt full, warm, and lustful. But this was indeed a problem. He thought for a while and said, keep it in for another week, and we will leave in a week. Go to the North Pole. You can do whatever you want when the time comes, as long as you have the ability, and as long as there are no more than 10, I will give you as many as I find. After Shaq and the others happily agreed, he continued to walk to the 3rd floor. Immediately afterwards there was a burst of ups and downs, and in the middle came a stupid bird who really couldn't stand it, and then there was another ups and downs silent all night, but the little spider from Queens said that he had a lot to say. The pool of black mucus on his hands not only couldn't be shaken off, but also continued to seep into his body. Even if he stretched the muscle membrane to the tightest, it could not stop its progress. Isn't this some kind of alien-like parasite? Is he going to eat all my internal organs right away and then crawl out of my belly? Oh my god, it would be too bad if Aunt May saw me die tragically. Most of the black mucus had penetrated, and Peter's thoughts began to become confused. Crazy but not evil thoughts appeared one after another, making his nerves more and more fragile. Finally, he gave up resistance and cried on the pillow. In any case, he is just a child who suddenly has superpowers. Faced with a great horror between life and death, even an old man who has lived a lifetime may not be able to understand it, let alone a child who has not experienced society. As for the polished little spider, although he deceived himself and imagined all of this, the wall clock on the wall was ticking, symbolizing the passage of time. I don't know how long it had passed, but Peter's crying gradually became quieter. He suddenly jumped up from the bed, and his strong movements allowed him to land steadily on the ground. Why are you crying? Isn't this a good life? But I definitely can't last too long. I have to do something meaningful before I die, do whatever I want and be unscrupulous. Aunt May. Aunt May's work is really tiring. The key is that she can't make much money. It's all the fault of Aunt May's boss. I can kill him. No, no, no. Murder is really terrible. I'd better get some money to make Aunt May spend the rest of her life comfortably, so that she can take care of herself even if I die. Robbing a bank. You can make a lot of money by robbing a bank. No. Then Aunt May will be caught. I have to think of other ways. The poor symbiote, because Peter's body and soul are too powerful, it cannot control the body at all. It can only mobilize the evil thoughts in the little spider's heart, prompting him to fall step by step, but the key is that there are few evil thoughts in Peter's body. It's so pitiful that the symbiote can't find anything to seduce the host in this heart full of sunshine. The phone on the table suddenly rang. After Peter answered the call, Sheriff George's voice came from it. I need your help, kid. The location is an overpass. There's a large-scale drug deal going on here. The enemy has a lot of firepower, and I need your help to track their attention. Drug dealing. There must be a lot of cash in there. With a thought in Peter's mind, the black and white Venom spider suit instantly covered his body. Cool, I'm going right now. After hanging up the phone, the venomous spider turned over and jumped out of the window. End of this chapter. Chapter 45. You should be like this. Spider threads shot out from the transmitter on the wrist, and they were firmly adhered to the rows of high-rise buildings in New York City, leading the little spiders to jump through the night. The symbiote did increase the little spider's combat power a lot. He had to adapt for a long time before he could master the power in his body that was several times greater than before. The spider silk, which was as tough as steel wire, also broke several times under the huge force. Just when he was about to continue adapting like this, the symbiote that turned the suit into black and white suddenly began to fluctuate. The little spider raised his wrist thoughtfully, and finger-thick sticks of mucus shot out like spider silk. Wow, Peter tugged tentatively. The shared body spider silk was several times stronger than the special spider silk he had developed himself in terms of feel, convenience, toughness, strength, and quantity. It could completely withstand his current strength at this point. He no longer hesitated, grabbed the symbiote spider silk with both hands and jumped off the top floor of a certain building with a whoosh. Yes, that's it. I have great power and I can do whatever I want. Yes, you can do whatever you want. I want to kill everyone and eat everyone's brains. No, no, no. That's terrible. I just wanted to get some money for Aunt May. Why did I have the urge to eat other people's brains again? Don't think so much. My main task now is to grab some cash from the drug dealer. The bridge is here, Chief. Is the other party really a drug dealer? Why do I feel more like an arms dealer? It's not just you. Keep the defensive formation. I guess this may be related to the purge of Hell's Kitchen. Jin cannot accept that his lair has turned into paradise on Earth. This batch of goods may contain guns and ammunition that he provided for his men. Damn city vigilantes. The deputy police chief next to George hammered the police car with a broken window. He said bitterly, on the surface, they are doing chivalry and punishing evil and promoting good, but they have no idea that this behavior itself is a kind of person who despises laws and commits evil. So what if they have superhuman strength? So what if they can fly over walls and climb over walls? Their appearance is more of an obstacle to the normal operations of the police and creates unnecessary trouble and obstacles for us damn city vigilantes. George leaned behind the car and listened silently, saying nothing. He admitted that the deputy chief's words made sense, because he thought so at first, but no matter what, city vigilantes were people with righteous hearts. It was precisely when he discovered this that he developed the little spider Peter Parker into your own informant. In his opinion, vigilantes with extraordinary abilities are like a gun in the hands of the enemy on the opposite side. The gun has no malicious intent on the police themselves, but their abilities are just used in the wrong place. George wants to. The only thing is to have the vigilantes, a group of highly lethal guns, in their own hands. Even if they cannot achieve 100% control, they can at least make them comply with the established rules of the police. It's like Spider-Man arriving at the scene from afar with his webbing. Look at him, be more obedient. After seeing the little spider landing in a standard superhero landing posture, George let out a long breath. The reason why he ordered to maintain a defensive formation was not because the police could not deal with the villains on the opposite side, but because he wanted to take this opportunity, improve the status of the special group of vigilantes in the eyes of the police, so that the vast majority of police no longer regard them as enemies, but as a powerful support that can reduce casualties of comrades in arms. In this way, he can implement a plan in the plan more smoothly. Wow! There are so many people, I want to eat them all. No, no, no. I'm here to steal money, robbing the rich and giving to the poor. How could I have such a terrible idea of cannibalism? Grab the money. Steal the money. Kill the person first, and then take the money away. I won't kill anyone at this moment. A group of police officers hiding behind police cars and drug dealers who continued to suppress fire also noticed the uninvited guest who suddenly appeared on the overhead highway. Many police officers recognized Spider-Man, but at the same time they were suspicious of him. Why did his suit turn black? But the drug dealers who are close to madness will not think about this. It doesn't matter whether you are Spider-Man or a lizard, as long as you are in the way, I will give you a shuttle first. Ding 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 dong. Little Spider was keenly aware of the danger before the drug dealer shot at him. He jumped up and down flexibly on the viaduct, shifting left and right, and all the bullets that hit him were far behind him at the same time. Under the constant and subtle influence of the symbiote, a surge of nameless anger quickly spread in his heart, with the potential of starting a prairie fire. Freedom to strike back. Seeing that most of the drug dealer's firepower was attracted by Spider-Man, George decisively picked up the walkie-talkie on his waist and gave the order to attack. The role of the vigilante was only to reduce unnecessary casualties of the police officers. He was worthy of being the first person selected by him. Peter's mission has been successfully completed, and the rest can be left to the heroic New York police. On the ever-changing battlefield, anything can happen. A bullet fired by an unknown person mistakenly hit the support of the bridge. After an incomparable deflection, it not only failed to hit any target among the police and drug dealers, but accurately hit the target while trying to suppress the nameless rage. The face of the little spider who failed to sense the danger in time. The bullet slowly penetrated into the rapidly surging black mucus, but in the blink of an eye, the yellow bullet was sent out intact. Spider-Man slowly turned his head and clearly saw countless bullets whizzing towards him, but at this moment, his heart was already filled with anger, and his only reason was suppressed in his heart. For the first time, the consciousness of the symbiote was suppressed. Peter Parker has obtained control over this extraordinary body. What a wonderful feeling. Peter, just see how I use this power. Clap clap clap. The scorching bullets whirled into the black spider suit, but they were all squeezed out in less than a breath. A huge ferocious smile opened on the face of the symbiote Spider-Man, and 5 thick spider silks came from the fingers of his right hand. The tip shot out and wrapped tightly around one of the steel pillars supporting the bridge. Smash you to death, accompanied by a deafening sound of steel tearing apart. The alloy pillar, as thick as 2 people hugging each other, was torn off. The 5 symbiote spider threads entangled and blended with each other, and the surging force dragged the giant thing towards the sky. A group of gun-toting drug dealers with stunned expressions on their faces. Boom. 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 All the police officers forgot to shoot. They just stared dumbfounded at the steel bridge pillar being smashed into the bridge deck again and again, with blood and flesh flying everywhere, and stumps everywhere. A few young police officers who had just started to work with guns. I couldn't help but bend over and vomited money. The symbiote Spider-Man acted as if there was no one around. He waved his black slime tentacles and searched for what the body wanted in the vehicle that had long since been turned into pieces. The bridge pillars still fell on the bridge one after another, and the symbiote was trying its best to reach the bridge. Roaring deep in his heart, the helpless and furious Peter Parker showed his power. A trace of cracks spread rapidly in all directions, and the flat bridge deck began to collapse in large pieces. Upon seeing this, George immediately told the police officers to evacuate immediately. After being dragged into the car by the deputy police chief, he still stared at the excited Spider-Man holding the cash box with complicated eyes. Peter, you shouldn't be like this. End of this chapter. Chapter 46. Yuri, who got up early, came to the first floor. Ethan just sat at the counter. He spread out the newspaper and smoothed the folds. His eyes behind the glasses slightly exposed the top edge of the newspaper. He glanced at Yuri, who came over and greeted politely. Morning, boss. It's only 7 o'clock. More, you don't usually get up so early. Morning. Ethan. Yuri took out his own breakfast from the refrigerator, heated it briefly, put it aside and ate it while eating. He also reviewed the newly revised Arctic journey plan of the 5 shacks. After consuming most of the breakfast, Yuri, who was reading the newspaper behind the counter, suddenly let out an exclamation. Yuri put down the plan book, stuck his head out and asked him, what happened, boss? You will never believe it. Spider-Man, the superhero known as New Yorker's good neighbor, broke into the scene of the police and robbers fighting last night. Not only did he kill all the gangsters in an extremely cruel way, killing them, and taking away the stolen money that the other party used to trade drugs, that's not a big deal. The overpass at the scene of the battle collapsed after being wreaked havoc by Spider-Man. Ethan handed the newspaper to Yuri, pointed to a line of text on it and said, "The newspaper said that everyone now doubts the justice of the vigilantes' actions and denies the legality of the vigilantes' actions. The police and the government will even Spider-Man is defined as a terrifying criminal and calls on everyone to unite to resist all their actions." Boss Ethan glanced at the ceiling without leaving a trace. He approached Yuri and asked cautiously, "Should Shaq and the others' night operations be temporarily suspended for a few days?" Yuri read the entire newspaper carefully, and his eyes stayed for a long time on a large picture printed in special colors. It showed the scene of the official symbiote Spider-Man crazily smashing a bridge with a money box, and the black and white spider suit in image. The jet black tentacles that looked like slime made people couldn't help but sigh. Blackening is 3 times stronger. Returning the newspaper to Ethan, Yuri patted his shoulder and comforted him. "Thank you very much for your concern for Shaq and the others, Ethan. In fact, their night activities have come to an end. You can see Hell's Kitchen. Such earth-shaking changes indicate that the main purpose of the night operation has been achieved." Ethan nodded, thinking of the 5 people who had become closer and closer to normal people in recent days. He said with considerable approval, "Indeed, Shaq and the others have changed a lot recently, which shows that the night operations are very effective." "What's wrong with Shaq and the others?" Yuri glanced at Ethan strangely, and under the puzzled gaze of the other party, he said, "The main purpose of what I said is to protect your personal safety. You are now a representative director of Stark Industries. Although the danger in Hell's Kitchen has been minimized, there may be some fools and lunatics who come out from nowhere, either to ask for money, or to take revenge, shoot a bullet at you with a gun. You know, you are the weakest one under my command, and I don't like the people who follow me to die for various reasons." Well, Ethan rolled up the newspaper and was very moved. He raised the glasses on the bridge of his nose and said while walking to the counter, "I don't know what good things I did in my previous life to become your employee." Yuri chuckled. "Maybe it was you who saved Marvel's own father, Tony Stark, with your life countless times in the parallel world." In the transparent glass cover, a pool of black and shiny mucus was rushing left and right, trying to find a chance to escape. But how could the observation device built by Yuri himself make it possible? Dark golden eyes instantly turning white, the majestic soul energy passed through the glass and headed towards the unaware symbiote. In the past, the symbionts tried to seize the consciousness of the host, but today it can be regarded as a turn of events after some inconspicuous resistance. The pool of black slime in the glass cover was completely controlled by Yuri. He raised his middle finger and asked for rewards. After playing with it for a while, he started attempt to erase the tiny soul and consciousness of the symbiote. Human consciousness mainly exists in the brain. Individuals with extraordinary talents may also imprint their thoughts on other organs. Such people generally do not realize their own uniqueness. They are often robbed or actively donated. Only after the heart is transplanted can one realize this unique talent from the person whose organ has been transplanted. So for example, after going to the hospital for a blood transfusion, he suddenly likes a man, or a person with kidney failure suddenly admires a thief after receiving a kidney transplant. Wait, they are all extremely normal existences. The human soul mainly exists in the pineal gland between the eyebrows. This organ of a very small number of people can break through the many barriers set by the Creator. As long as you tear a hole, no matter how small it is, you will have the ability to absorb energy and learn supernatural abilities. Talent and qualifications. Mutants are different. Their consciousness and soul are evenly distributed in various parts of the body. If one is damaged, they will all be damaged, and if one is prosperous, they will be prosperous. They are not afraid of being injured because they can recover naturally. To Yuri's surprise, the symbiote in the glass cover turned out to be the same as the mutants, with soul and consciousness integrated into one, evenly distributed in various parts of the entire pool of mucus. Is this a failed experiment before the Celestials created the mutant race? The symbiote god Nar in the memory appeared before the Celestial group, but the symbiote was not. All symbiotes were bred from the Black Death sword that was forged by Nar after killing a member of the Celestials and using his blood to forge it. Maybe there was no massacre at all, or maybe there was no such thing as a blood-forged sword. Is there a possibility that Nar and the Celestial group jointly created the symbiosis, a life population? No one could respond. Yuri immediately stopped thinking about it. His goal now was to annihilate the consciousness of this symbiote. Instead of thinking about a future that would take him an unknown amount of time to arrive, it was better to focus on the present that was within reach. The spiritual energy squeezed into the symbiote without any reservation, surrounding its small and weak consciousness and soul at a 10-to-1 ratio, and then revealed its murderous intentions. Without any suspense, it disinfected the turtle in the urn, who resisted desperately but to no avail. After carefully feeling it to make sure nothing was missing, Yuri put a finger on the glass cover. The hard but fragile glass split a hole like water, and the symbiont, which was so black and glowing, wrapped around it under Yuri's control. My fingers are sometimes as hard as steel, sometimes as soft as fingers. Wow. With a sound of water flowing, the symbiote spread and expanded rapidly in a manner that violated scientific laws, transforming from a pool of fist-sized black slime into a matte black giant that enveloped Yuri's entire body. Yuri can clearly feel the symbiote's pervasiveness: skin, muscles, bones, tendons, cells, genes. The symbiote absorbs cosmic energy, condenses it into countless undetectable particles, and integrates into the host's body, helping the host to survive at a higher rate. Develop original genes to help the host withstand various backlashes that may harm the body. After a few seconds, the black fluid that enveloped Yuri stopped changing. A total of 5 eyes suddenly opened, 1 between the eyebrows and 4 under the eyebrows. The dark golden pupils looked at a large standing mirror that had been prepared for a moment on the opposite side. It was pitch black. Suddenly a gash opened on his face, revealing a set of terrifying white teeth inside. Being a human is so tiring, no need to pretend anymore. End of this chapter. Chapter 47: Selling Armor. That night, in order to show off his agility, the belated Black-Braced Dan grabbed a rope thrown from the helicopter and slid to the rooftop of Stark Tower. Following him, sliding down, was a man with a ferocious face. A well-dressed man who looks inexplicably like a villain. Yuri searched his memory for a while and learned his code name, Crossbones. An inexplicable smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The person Nick Fury most wanted to bring to trial the steam armor was definitely not Crossbones, but since the latter can stand here, it is obvious that he has reached something secretly with the smuggler Alexander Pierce. It's a shady transaction, because the principle of Black-Braced eggs is that you may make a profit no matter what, but I will never lose. The guests have all arrived. Please allow me to briefly introduce the 2 steel giants in front of you. Black-Braced Dan and the soldier looked at each other and listened to Yuri's speech without saying a word. Unlike Tony's mechanical prosthesis, my steam armor uses a special matrix as the basis for energy supply and operation. The armor itself is made of ordinary steel and is slightly fragile when it is not activated, but once the driver activates the armor, its embedded special matrix will provide the armor with unparalleled defense and attack power. It has ample storage space for ammunition and weapons. You can set it up as needed and leave it to me to modify it. The bare metal also has powerful power. After special matrix transformation, the steam armor can overturn a car at full load. The tank, no matter what kind of enemy you 2 want to use it to deal with, I believe it will be able to enter the uninhabited territory. The armor can be charged automatically. The charging time is about 24 hours. After charging, it can support the normal state for 1 hour, the high load state for half an hour, and the full load state for 5 minutes. When the energy is exhausted, the matrix will fail, so please pay attention to your timing. Yuri's last sentence was to Crossbones and the unknown soldier brought by the military man. The expressions of the 2 men were obviously nervous and apprehensive. It seemed that they couldn't wait to get into the steam armor and experience it, but obviously, it doesn't count if they're thinking about it. The black marinated egg pondered for a moment, stared at Yuri with one eye and asked, I want to know what exactly is this special matrix you're talking about. No comment. Yuri didn't want to waste words at all, so he had the patience to introduce it to them, which was already his duty. Now he lived and wanted to get to the bottom of it, and it was clear that he was eyeing the special matrix on the armor. Hey Lou. Dan couldn't help but frown when he heard such a straightforward rejection. He put his hands behind his back and raised his head, looked at Yuri and threatened, if you can't figure this out, you are responsible for the life of the armor pilot. It's absolutely unacceptable to accept such armor that can't even figure out how it works. Then please go back to where you came from. Yuri glanced at the military man who was watching on the wall, stared at the Black-Braced egg and said coldly, we all know why each other is standing here. Don't use coercion and inducement for me. S.H.I.E.L.D. won't buy it. No, it means that everyone does not buy it, including the military, police, FBI, CBI, IRS. Even if these violent departments in the United States do not buy it, I can still sell the steam armor overseas in this transaction. I am God. Love to buy, don't buy. Tony, who was watching the show from a distance, finally couldn't help but come over. He was never worried about whether something would happen to Yuri. What he was worried about was that if Yuri was really angry, what would happen to the Black-Braced egg and the soldier opposite him. He won't be punched to death in order to prevent this kind of human tragedy from happening in Stark Tower. He had no choice but to come over and smooth things over. Okay, stop making trouble, Fury. Don't you just want to ensure the safety of the driver? Tony, will vouch for my personality, Yuri. The steam armor is definitely the safest weapon in the world. The soldier who was watching on the wall also spoke at the right time. He patted the big soldier beside him and said, as an agent, Fury is a bit timid as a professional habit. Come on, Tom, let them see the bravery of soldiers. Yes sir. The crowd was either openly mocking or sarcastic. Hey Braised Egg was so angry that he almost turned around and left, but the crossbones beside him suddenly whispered in his ear, anyway, take the armor back first. The technology he is unwilling to disclose. At worst we can crack it ourselves. Fury's one eye flashed with an inexplicable light. He suppressed the anger in his heart and cursed fuck in a low voice at this moment. Under the guidance of Yuri, the leader of the military man has already entered the steam armor. With a pleasant sound of gears snapping and bearings rotating, the armor is completely closed. After a while, the eyes of the visor representing startup complete. It lit up. The huge steam armor moved its limbs flexibly. Under the command of the soldier, Big Soldier Tom drove it to perform a series of actions such as push-ups, handstands, backflips, etc. The soldier even pulled out the pistol from his waist, and with different expressions on their faces, everyone fired all the bullets into the steam armor's eyes without hesitation. There is no doubt that except for the driver Tom, who was unable to face his fear and took a step back, the eyes of the visor, which seemed to be the most fragile, failed to leave even a white mark. The soldier stuffed the slightly hot pistol into his waist, nodded with satisfaction and said, what about flight mode? I remember you said he can fly. Yuri knocked on the shell of the armor and said to Tom, who was still frightened inside, imagine that you can fly, and you can fly. Imagine. The words that came out of the armor were muffled, and after passing through the layers, one could only vaguely make out that it was Tom's voice. Do you wave your wings like a bird? As he spoke, he also made a few very vivid movements. With a black line on the soldier's face, he asked doubtfully, I can't fly, I can't be like a bird. Then try to be like Superman. Yuri said, place your palms down, soles of your feet and shoulders, raise your head and chest, and look up at the sky. Listening to the excited shouts from the armor that was slowly rising into the sky, Yuri looked at each other with a military man with a black face. The latter was thinking about how to deal with the guy in the sky who had embarrassed him after returning, while the latter stretched out his hand. One hand rubbed its thumb and index finger several times in front of the former, $6,666 million US. Pay with one hand, and deliver with one hand. Hey Lou Dam finally bought the steam armor, Buddy and Jen Lau didn't move. The latter not only paid the money neatly, but also promised to bring more orders to Yuri in the near future. Lewden picked up his armor and left. Before rolling down the window, he stuck his head out and said nervously to Yuri, we will make the special no longer exist. Yuri, who originally wanted to warn them not to dismantle without permission and cause an experimental accident, calmly shut his mouth and made his own mistakes. People who are used to committing suicide will sooner or later die in their own hands. Just when he was about to ask Tony when he was going to create new elements, he looked up and suddenly caught a glimpse of a black and white figure adhering to the glass exterior wall of Stark Tower. He then jumped up and fell into the brightly lit room. The rooftop disappeared. Symbiote Spider-Man. Yuri raised his eyebrows and opened the exclusive elevator leading directly to the top floor with an inexplicable expression. End of this chapter. Chapter 48. I owe enough anyway. Stop. Stop. At this moment, the little spider has almost completely lost control of his body. Even if he struggles desperately, he can only take away control of his body for a few seconds. He watched helplessly as he wreaked havoc on the overpass, watched as he went crazy carrying cash boxes between high-rise buildings, watched himself break in through the window, and spilled all the stolen money used by drug dealers on Aunt May room, watching myself flying over the walls, arriving at the private mansion on the top floor of Stark Tower. Why do you want me to stop? Everything I do is for you, okay? The symbiote Spider-Man had just smashed through the glass door of the mansion on the top floor, and was about to rush in to kill and eat Tony Stark, but was dragged back by the little spider who was struggling to resist. Deep in his consciousness, the alarm bell rang loudly in the mansion. Tony, who was busy setting up the new element production room in the laboratory, frowned and waved his hand to let the artificial intelligence Jarvis show the cause of the alarm to him through a screen projection. The characters on the screen, wearing a black and white spider suit. The strange thing is that the suit squirms strangely from time to time. His behavior was even more outrageous. The broken glass everywhere clearly proved that he was the culprit who wanted to break into the penthouse and cause an alarm. But what was incomprehensible was that this guy who looked like Spider-Man sometimes raised his leg, taking steps, sometimes retracting his legs and retreating. If his movements weren't different every time, Tony would have suspected that the monitor was stuck. It is recommended to go to the lift platform and wear the Mark armor. Sir Jarvis's voice suddenly sounded. After data analysis, the frequency of the individual's forward steps is gradually increasing, and the backward movement is gradually decreasing. I have accelerated the ascent speed of Mr. Yuri's elevator, but in order to ensure your personal safety is absolutely guaranteed, so it's best to put on your battle armor, sir. Tony waved his hand to turn off the virtual projection screen, and ran towards the lift platform where Mark's armor was. The black Spider-Man in the surveillance video had no move to retreat at all, only the frequent lags while striding forward. Let people know that something inside him is still fighting unremittingly. Boom, Tony Stark, I'm going to kill you. In the face of the tyrannical power of the symbiote Spider-Man, the penthouse made of special building materials was like paper. Walls were smashed by fists, kicked by legs, and smashed by heads. Tony felt like he was being beaten. The street rat, which was chased and beaten by people, scurried around under the guidance of Jarvis, and finally rushed into the lift where the Mark armor that was ready to be worn was stored. Tony strode towards the armor, but because he didn't pay attention to the terrain under his feet, he fell hard on the angular steps. The movement behind him was getting closer and closer. He ignored the excruciating pain in his body and struggled to stand up. Staggering towards Mark IV, who was waiting for him quietly, turning around, spreading his arms, the chest armor, runes, leg armor began to close and seal quickly, but in just a few seconds, the symbiote Spider-Man who caused the huge movement was also close in front of him. Tony's visor hadn't fallen yet. He could clearly see the opponent's big arm of non-Newtonian fluid waving wantonly. The walls, door frames, floors, everything was so vulnerable. He could see that the opponent was about 10 meters away. He punched himself, and before he had time to wonder, streaks of black mucus rapidly proliferated and merged in a manner that violated the law of conservation of matter, forming a sharp cone. The tip of the cone was facing Tony Stark, who had finally taken off his visor. Even if Tony reacted as soon as he successfully put on the suit, how could his reaction speed with that of an ordinary human be comparable to that of a mutant youth and an alien visitor? The gold and red Mark IV smashed into the auxiliary mechanical arm behind him and smashed into the recently repaired and strengthened tempered glass. But before he could fly out, he was pulled back by the tapered spider silk. Sir, the plastron is damaged by 70.00%, and it has formed irreversible compressive deformation. Jarvis's voice rang in Mark IV's helmet, but Tony's face turned red and purple, and he just spat out a mouthful of blood mixed with unknown fragments, unable to say a word. Peter, as long as we kill him together, no one will know Spider-Man's true identity anymore. A bloody and crazy voice sounded from the black and white spider suit, and a sharp cone wrapped around his fist, and he was about to see it. He had to plunge into Mark's armor, which was tightly bound by streaks of black mucus. But at this moment, an untimely sound of footsteps sounded from behind the symbiote Spider-Man. Yuri walked calmly and said, "Do you remember me, little Spider-Man? Not only do I know who you are, I also know who you are. Who do you like? Who are you?" The symbiote Spider-Man threw Tony aside, stood up and looked down at the man with dark golden pupils in front of him. His keen biological senses told him that there was a huge threat hidden under the man's sunny and handsome appearance. "Who am I?" Yuri chuckled. As he got closer, black and shiny non-Newtonian fluids quickly covered his entire body. In front of the symbiote Spider-Man, the slightly thin figure quickly grew taller and swelled, and a tyrannical aura also appeared. It exploded in an instant. 5 eyes suddenly opened, and a stream of light that seemed to have substance flashed past. Yuri opened his mouth and smiled. "You will know when you die." Boom! Just a collision of fists caused the airwave to raise a large amount of dust. The symbiote Spider-Man was knocked away like a cannonball, but was immediately grabbed and pulled back by the giant black hand thrown out by Yuri. The body-supplying Spider-Man was held by Yuri, and he received a solid uppercut. The back of his head broke the shoulder blade, but in the blink of an eye, this terrifying fatal injury was restored to its original state. It pulled itself out of the ceiling, jumped far away and screamed at Yuri, "This is impossible. Why are you stronger than me? It sounds like you are invincible." Yuri mocked, and used his space ability to appear directly behind the symbiote Spider-Man. His raised fist condensed into a huge pointed cone, and in the next moment, It pierced the symbiote Spider-Man's spine and stabbed it violently, broke his heart. The tip of the cone protruding from the body disintegrated into several ropes, tightly binding the symbiote spider that was trying to escape. Yuri faced Mark IV, who was lying motionless in the corner, and asked as he approached, "Is he dead? If not, shoot the sonic cannon on him." Mr. Yuri Jarvis's voice came from under the visor. Tony's ribs were completely broken and pierced into his internal organs. He is now in a coma. For the sake of his life safety, I cannot control Mark IV to make any movements. You owe me another one. Tony. A golden life energy penetrated the severely deformed armor and penetrated into the body of Tony, who was lying on the ground. In just one breath, all the injuries were restored, and Tony's voice came out from under the armor, "I understand. Anyway, I owe you enough. Can you help me open the plastron? It is almost squeezing my belly into a piece of paper. Just think that I owe you one more time, okay?" Yuri curled his lips, and a jet of black non-Newtonian fluid penetrated through the cracks in the armor. Under the control of the master, it easily tore open the red gold belly armor that was strong enough to carry missiles. Looking at Tony jumping up from the ground, he said nonchalantly, "As you said, I owe enough anyway. It's all here. I admit that my writing is terrible, but as of the 23rd, I will have updated more than 30 words for 3,000 consecutive days. More people can invest in it. It takes 10 minutes and costs 10 coins. Everyone who gets 32 points will definitely not lose money." End of this chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49. 1 Messages. Sonic cannon ready. Tony raised his two arms and aimed at the symbiote Spider-Man, whose limbs were torn apart by 5 thick ropes and fixed in the air like a big letter. He glanced at Yuri beside him and said with some discomfort, "Are you sure that nothing will happen to you? Because the thing on your body seems to be related to it." "Do not worry." Yuri patted Tony on the shoulder and said confidently, "They are indeed relatives, but this one on me has been modified." "Okay." Tony glanced at the hand on his shoulder in confusion, and turned on the sonic cannon at a huge target that did not require auxiliary aiming. No. Stop it." The moment it was touched by the sound wave that could be detected by the naked eye, huge fluctuations occurred on the black and white suit of the symbiote Spider-Man. Each of the tiny slime tentacles struggled to be squeezed out, revealing the red and blue original suit inside. A huge, ferocious head emerged from the little spider's chest. It stared at Yuri and asked in disbelief, "Why are you okay? Why aren't you afraid of these damn sound waves? Increase the power." Yuri turned to Tony and said, "Until it becomes speechless." Tony shrugged rather unhappily. This feeling of being ordered but having to accept it was really terrible. "Do not stop, I beg you." The symbiote on the little spider's body is getting smaller and smaller, and the huge head is now only the size of a fist. At this moment, Peter finally regained control of his body. While enduring the sonic attacks that made no distinction between friend and foe, he watched Tony. Extremely the tough guy yelled, "Try harder. It's not enough. Shut up for me. Forget it, Yuri. After all, I owe too much." "But you, a little spider who broke in and tried to kill me, came to order me. What's going on?" While Tony frantically increased the power of the sonic cannon, he approached the black slime that was shrinking into a ball and was about to break away from the little spider to reduce the attack range and increase the damage effect. Crack! The fist-sized symbiote finally broke away from its host. Its body is weak as a slug, and its unstable soul were completely exposed to the endless sound wave attacks. Upon seeing this, Yuri immediately put down the little spider and used his own symbiote to make the container. Saved it. Okay, if you drive for a while, your penthouse will be completely destroyed." After Tony heard this, he decisively turned off the sonic cannon on his arm. He looked around, and all he could see were ruins and dust. He was not distressed at all, but he was mainly worried about how to deal with the furious Pepper later. "Explain the reason for this." "I'm sorry, Mr. Stark." When the little spider saw Tony sitting on the ground with his head in his hands, he thought he was worried about the funds to rebuild the mansion. In order to show his sincerity and apology, he hesitated and took off his hood, revealing a sad face underneath. "Face, if possible, I can work part-time to help you pay back the money, but it may take a long time." It turns out to be Brother Holland. Yuri took back his symbiote, sucked in the broken glass on the ground, and gathered them into a hollow glass ball the size of a fist. After stuffing the symbiote that was parasitic on Spider-Man into it and sealing it, he took a look at the large number of police cars that had gathered on the street with a fire truck. He said goodbye to Tony decisively. There are many people coming down below. I will go first. Remember not to be too harsh on him. In this terrorist attack against you, he is just a bystander. The voice. Just as it fell, a faint blue light wave flashed through, and Yuri disappeared instantly. Tony pondered on the ground for a long time, but in the end he couldn't come up with a solution. He sighed and glanced at the guilty little spider, whose young face was filled with anxiety about the unknown punishment. It's none of your business. Tony stood up and spread his hands. The Mark IV, which was missing its plastron, split from the middle. He walked out of it and subconsciously rubbed his intact ribs and waist that could not feel any pain. Seeing what the little spider was about to say, he simply waved his hand and interrupted. Don't even think about working part-time. Money, kid, I'm not short of that. Money you may never make in your lifetime. He spread his hands and smiled rather self-deprecatingly. This may be my only superpower. The little spider took a few steps closer at a loss. I am very smart. I am smarter than ordinary people. I can tell you the special spider silk formula I have developed, which can be exchanged for a lot of money. I can also learn. When I have more knowledge, I can work for you to pay back the money. Tony smiled and listened patiently to his incoherent self-worth introduction. It was only when the little spider couldn't say a word anymore that he spoke seriously. Those are things for the future, Peter. I think you are now. What you have to do is go home and explain to your Aunt May why the money box snatched by Spider-Man Noir appeared in your bedroom if you didn't deposit the money in the bank. How lay shines. Little Spider suddenly remembered that he had spilled all the money in Aunt May's bedroom, and his face instantly wrinkled into a bitter melon. Tony looked at him and asked gloatingly, did I guess it right? The little spider raised his head and said, it's worse than that, Mr. Stark. I have to go back. I'm extremely sorry for the harm I caused today. Please don't worry, I will definitely find an opportunity to repay you. After saying that, he stretched out his hand and pulled out a piece of white spider silk, which stuck to the building opposite. After running for a few steps, he jumped up suddenly and dragged the silk out of Tony's sight. Ancestral handicraft shop. Yuri jumped down from the ceiling of the third floor that automatically cracked, and happened to face Silly Bird and Silly Cat, who had just walked out of the bathroom. The former threw himself into Yuri's arms with a cry, while the latter picked up Silly Bird calmly. The bath towel fell on the floor, and after giving Yuri a wink, he laid down on the bed with his buttocks twisted. Boss, it's rare for you to come back so early. How about the three of us play together today? Silly Bird's eyes were blurry, and she had obviously begun to enter the plot, but Yuri mercilessly threw her on the bed, straightened her clothes and said ruthlessly, I still have some things to do, and it may take a long time. It may be very short, so you should go to sleep first. I will wake you up when I finish my work. After closing the bedroom door, he placed a glass ball containing the symbiote that had once parasitized Spider-Man on the simple workbench. His eyes turned completely wide, and he activated his mental abilities to arbitrarily break into the symbiote's body, control the body, read memory, extract information. 10 seconds later, Yuri withdrew his spiritual energy inexplicably. The symbiote in the glass ball had its soul and consciousness wiped out, and was placed inside as quietly as a puddle of melted asphalt. Is Nar, the god of symbionts, also in the North Pole. End of this chapter. Chapter 50. Kingpin joins the Hand. In the next few days, the pace suddenly slowed down. The five shacks suspended their nighttime activities. They either went to various restaurants to eat and drink and spend stolen money every day, or they danced and sang to experience the prosperity of the human world. Ethan's schedule was also very fixed, except for some special days when he needed to attend on behalf of Yuri. Outside the board of directors of Stoke Industries, he was still hiding behind the counter on the first floor studying and reading as usual. Yuri also lived a very fulfilling life. In order to realize the mass production of steam armor, he spent several days working and finally designed a qualified production line. Although the speed of one set in 2 days is not very fast, it is better than can move on its own. Tony's penthouse mansion suffered a devastating blow, and he had to put the birthplace of new elements in the beach villa. Whenever Yuri asked about the progress, he always said soon, soon. It's true, makes people anxious. Just when everyone thought they could safely prepare to go to the North Pole to search for and rescue fellow mutants, Daredevil knocked on the door of the handicraft shop covered in blood. The strong and inhuman Kingpin, the 5 Asians who call themselves Fingers, the bulletproof Bullseye, and the island nation's ninjas who are everywhere and can't kill them all. Vanix stretched out 4 fingers and shook them, and said with an arrogant look on his face, "So many things popped up as soon as we left, Matthew. It seems that the peace and security of Hell's Kitchen still depends on the 5 of us." Daredevil had long known what kind of temperament she had, so he didn't care at all when he heard this. Instead, he followed her words and flattered her. Yes, you must know that the current harmony in Hell's Kitchen is the result of the 5 of you working hard every night. You don't want it to be destroyed again and restored to its original state." But unlike what he expected, Vanix did not agree immediately. Instead, he hesitated and said perfunctorily, "Are you in a hurry? How about, do you know where their lair is?" Yuri interrupted Vanix. He looked at Daredevil, then at the 5 fellow mutants around him and said, "We are going on a long trip these days, and we may not be able to come back for a long time. If you knowing where their lair is, my plan is to eliminate them once and for all, preferably tonight." He didn't want to cause trouble. After all, whether they are endless ninjas or powerful kingpins, they can be injured by Daredevil. At best, they are ordinary people who have mastered extraordinary abilities, but 5 fingers. It reminded him of Kunlun, a hidden sect similar to Karma-Taj, and its sacred object Dragon Bone seemed to be buried somewhere underground in New York. If nothing else, the Kingpin should have reached some deal with the Hand. The Hand would send ninjas to help the Kingpin eliminate the enemies and stabilize the position of the Underground Emperor, while the Kingpin would provide them with shelter and assist in excavation to extend the time. Longevity, slowing down aging. Legend has it that the core of Kunlun is a golden egg who calls himself Shou Lao, and it is he who supports the existence of the entire Kunlun plane. Although we don't know what the connection is between the Dragon Bone and Shou Lao, and we don't know why the Dragon Bone appears in New York underground. But this does not affect Yuri's desire to take the Dragon Bone as his own, because he feels that he can get something from the Dragon Bone that can enhance his strength, such as opening up a plane, such as resurrecting the dead. But New York is very big and the keel is very small. If you want to find it, the best way is to get the answer from the top brass of the Hand. They have been planning this for an unknown amount of time in order to live forever. Since they have come to New York, it means that they have at least mastered the search. Keel method. It's at the Wilson Properties building in Kingpin. Daredevil saw that things were turning around. After relaxing, he finally realized how seriously injured he was. There were no less than 20 stab wounds all over his body, as well as broken bones and shocked internal organs. Severe pain swept over him like a tide, and the feeling of weakness from excessive blood loss also spread throughout his body. At the same time pressing the button, the short stick in his hand extended. He put all the weight of his body on the long red and white stick called the weapon, which was actually a blind stick. He held on to prevent himself from falling. "I can take you there. I can't worry about your condition." Yuri turned his hands to condense a ball of life energy and sent it into Matthew's body. The latter's wounds healed quickly at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the blood lost halfway was quickly replenished. A good man will do his best. Yuri controlled the life energy to converge on Matthew's eyes, easily repairing his eyes that were blind due to nerve damage. Oh, I bought it. Before Matthew could sigh for the rapid recovery of his injuries, the colors that appeared in his life again took away all the words he could express. In a moment of excitement, he actually stretched out his hand to the person he first saw. Seeing Yuri, it seemed that he wanted to touch and verify whether he had really recovered. His eyesight snapped. Yuri opened his hand decisively and beckoned the 5 shacks to go to the 3rd floor to get their equipment. He patted Matthew on the shoulder, and the latter thanked him with tears in his eyes. "Get used to it and don't affect the next battle." 3rd floor. Vanix was chirping and looking forward to the new equipment with the other 4 people. Recently, the boss was either designing the steam armor production line in the studio or tinkering with the black slime and the glass ball on the workbench. The former was for making money in the future, while the latter was for the new equipment they prepared. "Will we also wear a full set of armor like the Eternals? I don't like the look of their armor." While everyone was discussing, Yuri came belatedly and handed 5 glass balls filled with black slime to the 5 shacks one by one. "This is the new equipment I prepared for you. It is simple, easy to control, and can be changed in many ways. Jin, there is no need to consume energy, no need to worry about damage. It can withstand huge physical and magical damage, and can greatly enhance the user's strength in all aspects." Amidst the sudden rapid breathing of the 5 people, Yuri's whole body was covered with gushes of liquid. His 5 eyes suddenly opened, and a familiar and unfamiliar voice came from the ferocious mouth that opened and closed. "I will give it to you. It's called Symbiotic Reproductive Suit. Now, crush the glass ball in your hands, absorb the black slime inside, and give it any command like controlling a limb, and enjoy the surge of power, roar, 5 deafening sounds exploded on the 3rd floor. Vanix controlled the symbiote to form a ferocious giant bird, while Kate transformed into a huge hairless evil cat. Tiger, Chat, and Tiger all showed their unique abilities. The mutant race's true form, 5 huge black monsters, instantly filled the not-so-small space on the 3rd floor. Vanix takes Daredevil to the sky to show us the way. Everyone else should keep silent and keep a low profile before arriving at the enemy's lair to minimize exposure. After Yuri gave the order, he turned over and rode Vanix. The ceiling on the 3rd floor opened quietly, and the blue light flashed away. End of this chapter. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.